Meyer backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hickner off to the races. Hickner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Here, golly, what timing? Excuse me, and sorry about that. That just right at the start. Good afternoon, David Smoak and Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, 365 Sports, and we appreciate your time. What a night it was in Oklahoma City. What a night it was, of course, in yesterday with college baseball and teams punching their tickets to the Super Regional. And in fact, here are the teams in the Super Regionals with college baseball after last night's results. And LSU was, oh my goodness, for a while. But Arkansas Little Rock could not overcome the power of LSU. There you are from top to bottom, left to right, however you want to look at it. And teams that last night punched their tickets are now a part of those 16.
Hey, Murray State was drilling Ole Miss and then got pushed to the wire. That was nuts. But, yeah, this is a really interesting field. 5 ACC teams, 4 SEC teams, and then a smattering of others, 2 Big 12 teams, obviously. And then, you got the Pac-12 there, Coastal Carolina, UTSA. So pretty interesting field here.
Yeah, not how they would have predetermined it if they had just lined it up and done it off of stadium sizes or TV revenue or whatever we like to measure things by at this point. But actual on the play, yeah, it's a much different field than one would have expected. And so that's why they play the game, so to speak. And, it looks like it should be a lot of fun. Don't know really what to think of, who's even the favorite or like how this will all unfold really, because I'm not a baseball expert by any means, but I do like that there's a wide collection of teams from all over, got a little bit of everything from pretty much everywhere. And that should make for an eclectic and interesting mix. As for the baseball, hopefully it is as good as the past weekend was, because that was really entertaining all the way up until last night. And so, let's see who's going to move on to Omaha and take that next big step, but should be a great few days in store.
Well, 5 of the 16, Paul and Craig, you mentioned ACC and the Big 12 with Arizona and West Virginia, who, of course, moved into it with what they did over the weekend. For Murray State, you mentioned them. First time super regional berth in baseball, program history in baseball, after the 12-11 win against Ole Miss, where they had a big lead and then, as Paul, you mentioned, held on. Here's also a little bit of it just meant more. Of course, with the SEC and their slogan, it just means more. And then one more thing on Murray State. Here is a list of everybody who started a regional since they began with the 4 seed who have made it to the super regional round. Fresno State in 2008 won the national title. In Stony Brook in 2012 and Oral Roberts in 2023 eventually got into Omaha and the College Baseball World Series.
In 12, does that when Stony Brook won theirs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
12, that was when they won theirs. Yeah. So, it's, again, look, when you have 64 team fields, it's all about like anything that happened before the day you play the game doesn't matter. It like, that's the thing I think that, we every other sport in college athletics knows, but football is that, just play a game, like see what happens. Yeah, certain teams may deserve more than others or have these better resumes, but sports is about the day of the game, not like all these other kind of metrics that go into it. It's about between the white lines, and that's what happens here, and you see it every year in the tournament. And the more that you blast out conference propaganda, the more it's going to get highlighted when your results don't match your propaganda. So, is it fair to rag on the SEC after all this? I mean, sometimes I think that they open themselves up for that. Jim Schlossnagle certainly did by saying it was harder to win the national title or the SEC than the national title, and then losing in a regional he hosted. But yeah, I mean, that's why you play these games. It's a cliche for a reason.
Which is what we started off the show with yesterday. It's why you play, because you never know. You smash enough teams from any conference into a tournament, they're going to have some attrition. Not everybody's going to run the table. Some years are better than others. But there you are, and it's pretty cool. The ACC has the most teams in the final 16 with the 5. So there you are, the number 4 seeds. It's Stony Brook, of course. The year they went was in 2012. We don't have time to read this entire thing, but the University of Florida, both the AD, Scott Strickland, and also head coach Kevin O'Sullivan, we discussed that yesterday prior to Sunday's game, the first game early on Sunday against East Carolina. Strickland, I'm going to read his. This afternoon, I met with Kevin O'Sullivan and told him that his actions prior to yesterday's NCAA tournament game fell well short of expectations of how Gators treat people. One of our department's core values is respect. Coach O'Sullivan's unacceptable actions failed to demonstrate that. On behalf of Florida Athletics, I want to personally apologize to everyone impacted, including NCAA representatives, Coastal Carolina and their staff, East Carolina and their team, as well as to Gator Nation.
I like that they put out a statement and cleared the air there. I think that had nothing been said, then life would have moved on for everybody ultimately. But I do think there was a reason to want to hear from Florida and see what they had to say about his behavior. And it was out of line and it was unprofessional based on what window we had into everything. And so I understand being upset and losing your temper, but just dressing down people in public in front of a bunch of people was an awful look for Coach O'Sullivan. And so I'm glad that Florida didn't try to dig their heels in and say, well, they bumped our game by an hour. And I mean, I get that changes can set people off, but man, when I found out that all that he was upset over was they had bumped back an hour, I was like, that's what you were that mad about? Like,
you're a baseball coach, you have rain delays.
Like, that's what you're mad about, was playing an hour later? Like, that's what, so I don't know what's underlying there that maybe was going on with him, and that was just the lighter to the gasoline or what. But I commend Scott Strickland for handling it, putting it out there and putting it behind them. And yeah, it was a bad look, but it's not like something that everybody needs to carry like the scarlet letter or anything. So we move on, and hopefully he's better for that. But I'm glad that they took care of that.
Well, it's move on, and I got a feeling that Scott Strickland had a pretty good conversation with his coach, and he needed to, because it was a bad look. College Baseball World Series, we now move to what's happening in Oklahoma City. And 2 teams, Texas and Texas Tech, are going to play in a best-of-3 starting tomorrow. We will hear from Jerry Glasgow, the head coach at Tech, later on in today's show. But what an unbelievable – Texas took care of business in clean fashion. Beat Tennessee, didn't even have to play the if-necessary game. They had beaten Oklahoma earlier in the tournament. Texas Tech, they end up leading Oklahoma bottom of the 7th. They did it again with top of the 7th, a 2-run homer, 2 strikes to tie the game, and Tech did not blink. They could have crumbled. They did not blink. They win it. And Texas Tech and Texas, the winner of the best-of-3, will have their first ever national championship in softball.
Yeah, that's what Tech did by, betting big on softball and spending $1 million on a pitcher she's thrown every pitch of the postseason and 300 in the last 5 games, which is really, even like for softball with the natural motion, 300 pitches over 5 games that's a lot of work, and doing it with the torn hamstring string. And yeah, it is very impressive. And Oklahoma's long reign of terror over softball ends and opens it up for someone else to start a long reign of terror. But
it might be them again. Who knows? But for this week,
but for this week, look, it's Tech in Texas, and the softball world looks to the Lone Star State for their champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible story. Texas Tech obviously went all in on softball, and it's paid off handsomely for them, and they're in the national championship series. So, that was a good call on their part to go the direction they did this offseason. Obviously, Najee Kennedy is the one that gets all the attention, but, you had to make other moves. And here's the thing, too. I started to see some of the sour grapes from Oklahoma fans. Y'all's roster's not all players just playing for the love of the game. They went and got some players too. Yep. So I don't like seeing that when it's clearly, I don't know. It's like they were Auburn. I don't feel like people would care as much, but it's something about the small school did it. It's like, wait a second, what are they doing trying to pay these players and get themselves into a championship? So it's just kind of a weird reaction I saw on social media initially. But again, I think that was just sour grapes, and it didn't take long to look in the mirror and realize you're doing the same exact thing and have been. So that was 2 pretty equal teams squaring off in an incredible game with incredible drama. And it looked like Texas Tech was going to just throw up all over themselves. They had played so well. And then, as you said, clutch Oklahoma, kind of like they've been doing for a majority of this year, where a lot of people will tell you they're not quite as strong as they have been overall as a team, but they've still had a flair for the dramatic and been able to still go deep and be a very successful team. But people that I know, relatives and whatnot that follow them, don't feel like they're quite what they have been. And so last night you're like, oh, dear God, here they go, the Sooner magic. And credit to Texas Tech for not hyperventilating, not panicking, and being able to respond and get their own big hit and big run to win that game. And that was just incredibly gutsy, because when you give up that shot and you go from 2-0 and the game almost being over to all of a sudden it's all square again. I mean, you could crumble, you could panic and crumble, and they didn't do that. And so I think that bodes really well for the next round. Texas is obviously going to be very tough, but you know what? Texas Tech's going to be very tough as well. So we can get to the conference part of this if you want to, but I think it's neat that 2 schools who obviously are so familiar with each other, but not in the league anymore, are getting to meet on a big stage with a big title on the line. And and you're going to see, I think, some pretty excellent softball if you're into that sort of thing.
They played twice earlier this year, back in February. The first game was an extra inning game, Texas winning 2-1. They played a couple of days later, and Texas smoked them 11-0. In that first game, the 2-1 game earlier this year, both those games, I think, were down at McCombs Field in Austin. 2-1 in 9 innings. And I'm looking for the box score. I do have it here in front of me. As far as here we go. Yeah, Kennedy was the one who pitched for that game for Texas Tech, losing 2-1. The other game, there was alternate pitchers for Tech. So they've met, and I think you're going to see a hellacious. I think Texas has the edge here. They beat everybody. Texas Tech, though, with what they've done, and that said a lot, as Craig, you mentioned, that they could have just completely evaporated after what happened, and they didn't. They came back to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, they got a string of hits together, big sack fly, and there you have it, Red Raiders onto the National Championship Series. So, incredibly compelling game and gutsy effort. Kudos to Oklahoma. What a run, 4 straight national titles, and, Patty Gasso's got, I think, 7 overall, which is the same as the football team has in total. And she's done that in the last 20 years, which is pretty incredible. But, she's an excellent coach, and they'll be back, I'm sure. But it had to end at some point, and, it just ended up to where they didn't get back to that championship game. But I don't think you're really hanging your head. What a run it's been. Now the only bad part is you're looking at either your arch rival gets their first one, and you couldn't stop them from attaining that, or – the team from a league that you just left and you basically discredited, in so many ways, or your fans have in some ways, that they're below you. They're not playing for it, and they can win a title. So I don't think you're really rooting for anybody. If you're Oklahoma in this one, you're just disappointed, and that's fine. A lot of teams disappointed except for 2 right now, and then there will only be 1 left standing here in the next few days. So I think Texas and Texas Tech, with the background and the history, ought to be a very spirited crowd, very familiar crowd, and it's a big deal, man. I think for Texas, obviously, with all they've invested, and they've really put an emphasis on softball, and they've obviously been knocking on that door these last few years. They want to burst through finally, and then Tech's kind of a new booty to it all because we haven't been talking about them the way we've been talking about Texas. But they're in the same spot that Houston was in back during the earlier part of this year in the NCAA men's tournament, or TCU was in the national championship game a few years ago. We've seen Big 12 teams as the room between them and the has and the have-nots, so to speak, is increased depending on where you're looking. They've separated themselves further from those maybe below them. They've definitely lost ground, as everybody has with the SEC and the Big Ten. But here you are with this prime opportunity to make a big mark. And so can you do it? Or is this going to be like Houston falling short against Florida, TCU getting demolished by Georgia? I think it's impressive the Big 12 has been able to continuously put some teams into these games, but at some point you got to win them, right, for it to matter. So big opportunity for Texas Tech in a lot of different ways, and they're representing more than just themselves. But, it should be fun.
Yeah, the run from Patty Gasso in Oklahoma has been more than just what they've done the last 5 years, not including, of course, not winning this year. But I got home, I started watching the game. It was 2-0. I believe Tech was up 2-0, and it stayed that way over and over. They couldn't touch Kennedy. They weren't going to get much against her. And then here at the top of the 7th inning, I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They've done that like 3 times just in this tournament alone. But congratulations to Texas Tech. And we'll have Jerry Glasgow, their head coach. He'll join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul Catalina, you sent this out. We have not gotten away from this, but the SEC and Big Ten, and we know the story. We've discussed it a ton. Last week, of course, there was the SEC spring meetings in Destin. The Big 12 then had theirs in Orlando, and it just seemed like that turf war, which is still there. But John Tolte, who we've had on this show many, many times, did a little background story on not that there's any kind of, what is going on between the Big Ten and the SEC, but I don't think the Big Ten expected this thing to change. I don't think the SEC expected that this thing would go from 5 plus 11 or what they wanted with multiple qualifiers from various conferences to end up right now. The momentum is 5 plus 11.
Yeah, I think, and if you see this, like the reason they're scared about the committee, the quote here, you can read the whole thing. They said, we want you to pick the best teams, but then no one told them how to find the best teams. So, and this has been true. This is Mike Trengizi, who used to be a conference commissioner in the Big East, said this, and it is right because they've always had a moving target as to what the metrics are and what the difference is. And then when they were picking 4, it was really, really hard because that's when we got stuff like game control or travel time or, whatever it is. And so they've come up with all these things. And I understand the SEC and anybody wanting to have like a definite set of like what the best metrics are. That's fine. It's just weird coming from the SEC, who got 3 teams in and not 4 last year, and that's why they're mad. But part of the reason the SEC, I think, wasn't ready for the automatic qualifier thing to kind of become unpopular in their conferences, I think they thought the coaches would go for it. And the coaches were all like, no, we want 5 plus 11 because that gives us the best opportunity. I think that caught some of them by surprise, especially based on this article. When they brought the coaches in the room, the tide shifted.
Well, you'd think they would have known that prior to when
I think that Greg Sankey maybe knew that, and Greg Sankey's always felt that way. I think that several of the ADs did. I don't think the presidents know what their coaches are thinking quite as much as they probably should across
they have
a lot of
much
these.
Bigger fish to fry in many ways.
Look, there are schools, Linda Livingstone's on every committee in the world. She understands sports. She was an athlete. But for every one of her, there's 10 people, like the president at Cal that's like, so what are we getting? What's going on here? What's it? They just don't They just don't deal with it. That's what the athletic director does, and they just give a report every month. So, I think that's where a little bit of the shock was. And then the coaches don't want to go to 9 conference games. They don't like the idea of the play-in tournament game at all. All of those things, they want to stay kind of where it is and just pick the 16 best. And the Big Ten, I think, thought that the SEC was more in lockstep with them, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
In this article from Talty, the Big Ten and SEC may not be as aligned as they once were when it comes to future college football playoff formatting. Also, Sankey and other conference commissioners expected to have a call, in fact, today, to further discuss the latest discussions, the college football playoff discussions. They'll meet in person on June 18th in Asheville, North Carolina. So it is, I think it's going to end up 5-11. What do you think? You think it's going to end up 5-11? Or do you think that the Big Ten, are they going to flex their muscles and say, nope, it needs to be like this?
I have no idea what the Big Ten is going to do, but I think that anybody figuring that the SEC and Big Ten were just going to hold hands and just jog along each other and skip and have fun and whistle and they were all going to agree on everything were just fooling themselves. I mean, they're this predatorial in some ways to be the absolute best. You think they're not going to be that way against each other? Because that's ultimately what it boils down to. Now, I'm sure they have some greater agreement unofficially and this big picture outlook on the future of college football where they are the AFC, NFC, or whatever the grand vision really is. But, yeah, we've heard a whole lot from the SEC. We've heard a whole lot of nothing from the Big Ten. I don't think that's coincidental. I think that's by design to some extent. And I think, it's been a matter of letting Greg Sankey go ahead and put his neck out there and take the arrows and do all that, say the things that people don't want to have to say because it's going to get the negative backlash that a lot of it got last week. But I also think that they don't necessarily agree on everything. So I have no idea. If I'm the Big Ten, I'd go the AQ route because I think you've got more teams to be able to do that now, for one, with the PAC expansion, but also because I don't think you're necessarily as guaranteed as the SEC is to have all of those teams up in the rankings. Last year you did. Last year you had it great. You had Penn State, you had Indiana, you had all these schools. So maybe every year will be like that. But if I had to bet, I'd bet on the SEC having more of a haul in that top 16 year to year than the Big Ten. And maybe I'm not adjusting quickly enough to where it is about to even out more because of the money and things like that and the last 2 national champions. And maybe the Big Ten's about to go on a crazy run where they're taking more of the spots. But I do think that they probably like the 4 AQs because why wouldn't you? You get 4 teams automatically in the playoff and then maybe get some others on top of that. So I don't know how you wouldn't like that. But I think if you're the SEC or the Big Ten, you're both okay with pretty much anything because you're going to get a handful of teams every year no matter what the design is. So how greedy do you want to be or how confident are you in which model gets you the most teams year to year? I think the difference is probably pretty negligible ultimately. But, yeah, I won't pretend to know what the Big Ten's thinking other than I don't think it's exactly what the SEC's thinking all the time.
All right, let me ask you this. There's a lot of this in this article from John Talty, and you hear about the metrics or the criteria or whatever. Do they even know how to put the committee together? Is that one of the issues as well? It seems like there's kind of a cross-section of different people. This is in the chat room with Old Barncat. Committees should be made up of retired college coaches from all divisions. That's a note. But is that the right way? Is there still going to be a bias there? Is there still going to be a regional or a conference or whatever historical bias? But it does seem like, do they know what they're doing in putting together the committee first? Has anyone ever had a problem with that? Or is it what the committee needs to decide? Which one comes first?
Well, I don't if you look at the way the committee's set up, if you look at everybody just based on their credentials, I don't think I've ever had a problem with anybody that's been on the committee credential-wise. The problem with it is we don't know how much influence certain power brokers have over it. I mean, look, when Bill Hancock was in charge, when you heard, you guys, he told it to your face. We're fine with college football going the way of just these teams. So you kind of knew where he stood as the spokesman for the whole organization and the head of the college football playoff, group. So when you hear something like that, well, you got to wonder, okay, well, who's telling, he serves at the pleasure of whom? Not clearly it's supposed to be everybody, but clearly he's got some people in the room that are pushing some agendas that he also feels are aligned with the best for college football. So when you hear someone like Bill Hancock for years say the things that he did, you're like, well, he really only cares what, Mike Slive or Greg Sankey or Jim Delaney or Kevin Warren or those conferences thought, because when it came down to it, he was advocating for just kind of all the brands. Now, I don't think that's the case with Richard Clark, at least right now, at all. And we've talked to him a bunch. He seems to be taking kind of a holistic view of the process. But I think that's the issue. It's not, the credentials of people on the committee is who's influencing the outside of that. So like when they go in those rooms and the person in charge, whether it's Bill Hancock or Richard Clark, like lays things out, like who has the political sway over them. And look, Greg Sankey's even mentioned when they go in the rooms, they make political deals. That's all part of this. So when you have somebody who slants so hard towards elitism like Bill Hancock did for years and years and years, then yeah, you're going to have these results in the committee because that's the general message they're given the whole time.
Well, first of all, I don't think active athletic directors should be on a playoff committee.
I
think having
agree.
active people is just asking for trouble. I don't understand why that's allowed. I mean, I like Mack Rhodes over at Baylor, but I don't think he should be having a say on the college football playoff committee and determining teams. And I know they're all saying, well, we're being non-biased and holding each other accountable and this and that. There's enough former coaches. There's enough former personalities that you can put together a committee. You do not have to have active members of institutions that are currently involved. So that's number one. I think that's entirely unnecessary. And I mean, did you read the article in full? Because I don't know about a committee and their feelings on the committee. I know the SEC has griped about it quite a bit, and it semes like they're already planting the seeds to try and massage the committee to their favor, every single other thing. But the first sentence in the story is, not about the committee, but just in general, to answer your question, the SEC isn't waffling on its stance on the future college football playoff format. It just doesn't know what it wants. So they don't know what they want. That's the very first sentence. They don't know what they want. So if they don't even know what they want, then I sure as hell don't know what they want. And I think what they want is as much as they can possibly get. And it's a matter of how you get there. But, I think everybody's still figuring out, even with their pamphlets and their, notes and everything that's been passed along over the last week, you're building up a certain angle, but is this better than this? I don't think you can really tell because it's all so brand new and we've never done it before.
Well, I did read the article, but I'm glad you brought that up at the beginning. But Bracket Cat says humans are terrible at this. Let the unbiased computers. Who feeds the computers?
Well,
where do the rankings come from? Who's the ones voting in the various polls that also lead to what are part of the I guess the data that you put inside the computers?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than just plugging in poll rankings by humans. That's a part of it, but it's an 18th of the overall formula or a 12th of the overall formula. So there's always going to be a human factor, but there's a lot of things that are just measurements. That has to be determined by humans as well. Like at some point, a human has to do something. We can't just say, here, computer, take care of everything and set our playoff up for us. And put all the numbers in that you want, and you spit out the teams that you want in the order that you want, and then we're just going to take it and apply it. Like that's not how it works. There has to be humans involved somewhere. But for the most part, humans are just inputting data, and then the computer chews it up, spits it out, whatever formula you've come up with, and gives you the information on the other side of it in as unbiased a way as possible, like the BCS did. Now, people clearly had their issue with that, but in light of the human element and people just making up stuff as they've gone along, I think there is a desire for just as unbiased and straightforward of a thing as possible, tool as possible, and that is a computer, as opposed to a group of active ADs and legends and military people and whoever's just politically, in favor at that moment or knows the right people or whatever. I think most people now, because they've seen so much of what they consider bias, would like to have the least biased thing possible, which is a computer, which is weird knowing where we came from with the BCS, but we were also determining 2 teams. We weren't determining 12, 16. It's a whole different ball game. So it's all new.
I also think that, look, what do the other committees do? What does baseball do? What does basketball do? They have a Ken Palm. They have RPI. They've had all these things, metrics that help them. Football does not have a comparable thing that they use for sure. So there are things. So basketball, when you listen to basketball coaches talk about why they schedule, they say, well, this is good in KenPom. And then, when after the game, after those games happen, and they said, look, we have this win against the top, the top quadrant in KenPom and all these things. And those are metrics that can back them up. But ultimately, humans do make decisions on the finer points of it in the NCAA tournament. I think a combination of those things is good. Like, I don't think you can just leave it up to one thing or the other. I think the hardest thing with college football compared to any other sport, especially compared to basketball, is you are going to have to get a rating system that just is about that year. And what the Big Ten and SEC, especially the SEC, is pushing is that a year ago matters. And it doesn't. It only matters in the year. And that's the thing. That's, I think, the metric they would like to get in, if there is one. It's like, hey, we're always good. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Like, this is only about this year.
Okay, who floods the polls with the votes? Who's the one that sets up the coaches poll or the media poll? The AP
media
poll?
and the coaches.
Right. All right. But if you have ranked wins, how many of them are going to be ranked wins based on a preseason poll that is based on, I guess you could say, tradition or perception?
I don't know, because that's what you would determine is how you do all that. Like, I don't know. We have no idea how that would work.
The preseason polls, I don't have a problem with them as far as discussion, to set up the TV networks, the games they can promote 1 and 2 or 4 and 8 or whatever it is. But in the end, if you have 12 or 13 teams or 11 or 12 teams ranked inside the top 25 at the beginning, and you're eventually going to create, which we discussed earlier this week, is this bubble.
But it's
teams.
not all based on just top 25 wins. That's why there's other categories and other things that are part of the formula. It's not just.
It's a part of it, though.
Yeah, it's a part of it, but how much? Is it half of it? Well, that's substantial. Or is it 1/20th of something? Because then it really doesn't matter nearly as much. So you're asking a question that nobody has the answer to, because we're not even settled on the format, much less how they're going to decide the format. So I know you're setting it up as like, here's where the bias comes in, but yeah, that's true at the polls to some extent, but I'm not going to get scared of a boogeyman that doesn't even exist yet,
but
right?
I think also, though, to pull out like part of the problem with the polls, when you mentioned preseason polls, that's part of the problem, is that the polls until a certain point shouldn't matter. Like, until they've played a couple of games and we're kind of through it.
Like they do about early October, they start to have the college football playoff standings.
Yeah. Okay, but we know that is not going to change. They're not going to have preseason polls.
The networks are not going to let you, by the way, eliminate polls because they use those to promote their games.
But my point being is there's a lot of, well, heck, Kansas State was number one, when they beat them. Yeah, but if they were number one when you beat them in September and they have 7 losses when you're having this discussion, that number one was never really number one.
Well, then I think that's, guys, where you
have to take those kind of things out.
Yeah, that's where you have a committee and you talk about, what are their ranked wins? And you say, well, this is one of their ranked wins. Well, that was in week 1 against a team that's now 500. Okay, well, then that one doesn't count as much as this one. Like, I understand the concerns. I just think we're getting too far ahead of ourselves with worrying about minute details that aren't going to be so minute in the future, but right now really don't matter as much as they will when the time comes, because they've got to settle on a format. They've got to settle on how the format's determined, and then we can get into, okay, what goes into that. But like, getting hung up on the preseason poll mattering too much in a system that is completely a blank sheet right now is really not that big of a deal. But like, when you come down to determining teams, then how is that looked at and what is put into place to try to counteract that and not have too much of a weight on the fact that somebody was number 15 and Alabama beat them, and that's an extra top 25 win versus Iowa State, who had that's so far into the weeds that I think that's not really the concern at this very moment, but that will be a concern, of course, when you finally settle on how you're going to determine these things, and that will need to be taken into account.
There's a lot of feedback from you in the chat room. We appreciate it. First, teams like Ohio State and Texas get punished for playing competition. That's why you have humans in the committee that should be able to kind of like separate that. However, I have seen this, and we've heard it from those who have been the chairman. Will be interesting what Mac Rhodes says when we get to October, is that you might win a game early in the year against a team that's highly ranked that loses their quarterback or gets beat up with the injuries or whatever. And you hope to God that inside that committee they're discussing that, which it's still a quality win no matter what that team ends up or how they end up at the end of the year.
I mean, do we not we got to take a break here, but I mean, do we not hear them break this all down during the CFP selection shows and meetings? Now, they don't do it to our necessary, like they don't satisfy our appetite for wanting to know the very specific things. They go so far as to just kind of give a blanket of how they did it, but I think that they are discussing those things. Like when you boil down, like here's Ohio State and here's Iowa and here's their top 25 wins. And if they're not doing this, then even more reason for there not to be a committee. But I would assume that they're looking at like, well, one of their top 25s was in week 1 and that team's now not even ranked. And then that's where you get into the comparison. So that to me just seems like a sand pebble on a beach right now as far as their concerns. And that will be one of those things that once you decide on a format and you decide on who decides how these teams go in, then you get into the details of, all right, how do we go about deciding and what formulas do we use and how do we use those? And that's when that can be decided. But to hold it up as like some boogeyman that makes the whole thing not kosher with everybody, I think is just kind of creating something out of nothing, honestly.
All right, great stuff from all of you. Can't read all of it, but I love that. In fact, Roger the Dodger, if USC travels 3 time zones away and they win, it should be 1.7 wins. Having fun with that. From Houston Cougars, our great friend in Bavaria. When you start with 25 out of 130 plus teams, programs, metrics stop measuring performance. They just reinforce bias. That's from our good friend out of Bavaria, Northern Bavaria.
I still want to know, did I nail the favorite Houston Cougar of all time, and Sebastian Vollmer?
He didn't answer that.
But please answer it.
Caston,
I won't
answer who's your favorite Houston Cougar athlete, football player, basketball player of all time in the chat. We'd appreciate that.
I mean, it would be nice to eliminate those polls for the reasons that you cite, but for the TV network's purposes, as we all know, that's not going to happen. They're not going to get rid of preseason polls. So that's just part of the thing that could be better, but that's not changing. So you have to take that into account and deal with that as best you can.
Andre Ware.
Oh,
I told you, man. I thought it was going to be like Greg Ward or somebody.
Well, no, that's the one I said yesterday when I said, I'm saying it's Sebastian Vollmer, and he's going to know you're kidding me. It's Andre Ware.
Yep.
Yeah, it's probably the Heisman guy.
Yeah, absolutely. He happens to be, and what a year they had and career he had. All right, when we come back, we have this 3 o'clock hour. We are loaded up today. Mitch Light from theathletic.com, who covers college baseball. Then it's Chris Vanini, who covers everything college athletics, including football, at 4:25. Craig's off the radar. Jerry Glasgow, the softball coach at Tech. Gary Barnett, former Colorado and Northwestern coach, who's a part of Colorado Radio. He will join us, and we have the top 5 with Paul Catalina. And yes, Andrew Valade throwing up the polls. We'll have the results at the end of the show. This is 365 Sports.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Right now at Berg Colgan Ford, we're bringing you an offer that's as big as America. Employee pricing for everyone. You pay what they pay. That means you drive home a new Ford F-150, Bronco Sport, Expedition, Super Duty. From America, for America. Employee pricing for everyone at BK Ford. Looking to sell your vehicle? Get top dollar for yours today. Don't miss out. Employee pricing is available for a limited time. Visit us anytime at bkford.com. Experience better at BK Ford.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Here we go, 365 Sports. Fish in the chat room, been active today. I can't stand preseason polls. Look at Georgia. Had no offense last year, had 3 losses. They lose their starting quarterback, aren't looking any better on offense this year. They're number 2 in the FPI poll or in metrics right now.
Yeah, I saw Bill Connolly dropped his new football power index. I really appreciate the work that Bill does. I'm not a numbers nerd, but I do understand its place and its importance in the game and all of that. And I'm not a numbers nerd mostly because I'm just too dumb. That's the main reason why. But I did see his latest FPI come out for this year, and it's very heavy with the usual suspects. I think of the top 20 or 25 or whatever it was that he put out, it's like very heavy with the same conferences that you'd expect. I think that for like the Big 12 specifically, K-State was like 21, and that was the highest ranked team. Arizona State was like 20-something, 24 maybe. But as somebody pointed out in the comments, it's like he was 12 for 25 in last year's FPI as far as teams that I think were ranked by the end of the season. So it's a fun offseason thing. It's not an exact science by any means, much like, to your point, the preseason polls, which is, yes, why we need to consider those as much of just a TV thing, a TV advertisement, as much as it is something that should have actual bearing on the season itself. And that is where it's problematic. I do agree, but I just know, and we all know better than to think that the TV networks are going to scrap those things. So, how do you best deal with that is the route you're going to have to take, because they're not going away. But yeah, it's silly. And they are definitely not the most accurate tools, whatever you're looking at, FPI or top 25s or whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
You could probably not even look and give the top 10. I would think it would not be very difficult to probably say who's going to be inside the top 10. What would be more impressive is if those are the ones that last year would have had a top, whatever you want to call that, what he does, and it would have had Arizona State in there, or it would have had somebody else in there, Indiana in there. But that would be like genius. But
that's the thing with those polls is you can't possibly have those teams in there because there's no reason to have those teams in there. Like, you're using all of these metrics, and that is, part of the problem with the computers, I suppose. But you're putting in all of this information, but that information doesn't count for Cam Scadaboo's heart. You know what I mean? Like, it can't count for certain intangibles that are immeasurable. So that's where that errs a little bit. And it's a fun tool, I think, to chew on in the off season, not to be taken too seriously, like all the other things that get pumped out, particularly during the off season from everywhere, including us. But it's definitely not something that you take to the grave. And it's just as much a fun exercise as it is, anything else. So
let's see here. The General Ursus, I'm just throwing out some chat room comments because we appreciate them. I'm over this. Just put conference champions from all Division I in the playoffs. That's it. If you can't win your conference, you shouldn't be in. That will never happen, but that's an opinion. General, I get what you're saying, but that's not going to happen. We know that's not going to happen. The SEC,
that made too much sense, General.
Yeah,
we can't do that.
The SEC is not going to be one, and the Sun Belt is one. Doesn't mean if you think it's true or not, but it's not going to.
It would make too much sense, but most importantly, it wouldn't make enough money.
Well, and the other thing is we're too far gone with the way the conferences are set up. Had this been something they did 35 years ago, then it would make a lot of sense, because the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC and, the Sun Belt wasn't maybe as cavernous as it is right now. It still would have been more. There still would have been a gap, but the difference between Alabama and Louisiana Monroe was maybe not as stark as it is right now, especially the way offenses were, the way that football was in general. Those games would have been better, but we're now too far beyond the pale to make that happen because of all the moving around that everybody's done.
Somebody made this comment, and I did have this in my – when you have a conference with 18 teams, can you really have a conference champion?
No.
16 teams, 17 teams. Can you really – you know who can have a conference championship? The Pac-2 with Oregon State and Washington State. That's about it.
Well, for another year, then that changes. So, and they didn't even really do that necessarily or make that big of a deal out of it. They probably could have had more fun with that in this day and age of, playing it up on social media and having, a whole ball with it. But they didn't go that route. I think that this was the problem that people pointed out from the very beginning with having 18-team conferences or 20-team conferences or 16-team conferences. Even it's something I bitched about throughout the regular season. As much as I enjoy covering leagues and all of that, you see some of the differences in schedules and you realize that team that's hot on the heels of a championship spot has not played like 3 of the top 4 teams. And that sucks, but it's what you asked for. So anybody complaining about it that was on board with realignment, well, you're kind of being hypocritical because you wanted realignment. Now, if you were against it from the get-go, then you called it because it did lead to having this lopsided schedule across the board where, there's no real way to determine the one true champion like the Big 12 had up until a couple of years ago when you played every single team in the league. Those days are definitely over. Now you might not play like 6 or 7 teams in the league, which is insane, but that's what realignment created. So I think conference championship play-in tournaments would have resolved some of that, but it wouldn't have done it entirely. There still would have been, I think, depending on what each league decided to do, you still would have had the weird scenario where it's like a conference champion, but then you have the play-in tournament for the other teams to make the playoff. So you still would have had the problem of, well, is that the true conference champ? You know what I mean? So I don't know if there's a great way to really determine the true winner. I guess there's not now because of how big the leagues are.
Yeah, it's just gotten to the point where and I did see where the SEC coaches, and in the article with John Talty, which I could see, they don't want that play-in conference championship weekend either.
I see a lot of like this I see a lot of like YouTube reactors that like getting mad at the fans or something, like it's their fault this stuff's not happening. It's like the coaches don't want it. The coaches don't want the play-in tournament. So if that's the case, and I don't know that would be the case for every league, but I don't know. I just feel like sometimes people get upset about some of these things and like just the criticism is off the mark. And I feel like last week I saw a lot of like, well, the fans wanted this, and it's like the fans didn't ask for any of this. The fans wanted like, if it was up to the fans, we'd have an 18 playoff with conference champs and like 3 at-larges, but y'all would never, ever go for that. That was never even under consideration, basically. So, you're not going to have a way to determine a true champion, and the play-in games would be cool and they'd be exciting, but there's also negatives to those as well. Those weren't just like the perfect thing to do either. Mm-hmm. So there's probably a solution somewhere in the middle, but nobody really wants to meet in the middle. And so we're not going to get, surprise, surprise, the fans aren't going to get exactly what they should probably be getting if this were a product based on just doing it the best way possible and not how much money can we make. I absolutely agree. Here's also one that I enjoyed, MBM. You'd think that us being the dominant species on the planet, that we could be able to come up with some sort of regional conference structure, continuous borders, etc. There's too much conflict in all of that. as I get older, I realize like there's more times where I go like to Emery is just such a scallywag. I mean, that young man, but no, I mean, I say something to him. I'm like, damn, I know I sound old, but I don't feel that way. But I know that it does sound old to him. And I know that here, probably in the next couple of years, you're going to be telling your kids, you're going to be telling your grandkids, we used to have regional conferences back in the day and everybody was connected and played each other. And that's not really, I mean, outside of the SEC and like the new Pac-12 and the Sun Belt, that's over. So I feel like I'm going to be an old man talking about how like the Big 12 North and the Big 12 South was back in the day. You just missed it, son,
Yeah.
Or the big freaking 8.
Or the Big 8 or the Southwest Conference.
Can you imagine telling somebody that Nebraska and Texas Tech used to be in the same conference?
Yeah.
Like they just
that does sound weird.
But by the way, I've never much pegged Emery as a scallywag, much more of a rapscallion.
Rapscallion. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. I like the name Scallywag.
Is that a certain taste of a scallion, like an onion? Or
No.
yeah.
But I mean, he's not a ne'er-do-well.
Yeah, no.
But he'd have to really love scallions for us to like pinpoint a name based on scallion taste. Like that'd be kind of weird for him to be that into him that we'd have to come up with a scallion nickname.
Kim Coulter, Craig thinks he sounds old. ROFL.
Yeah.
Paxton, was 8 teams ever considered? I don't
remember it ever being.
It went 4 to 12 to 16.
Look, man, if they actually did consider it, it came and went very quickly because I feel like we went to 4 and then we were at 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think 8 was ever really under serious consideration. I don't remember. Maybe y'all do. If y'all want to speak up, I don't remember ever having a conversation with any of the various analysts. I don't ever remember reading many stories, if any, that like really dove in on an 8-team playoff. It was like just never even a thought. It's just. So no, I don't think it ever really was under consideration. I think once they said, "Oh, 4 is not enough," here we go to 12, and that's where all the AQ talks and we got to have at least 4 because we're this and that, and so then it was never going to be just 8 because 8 wouldn't allow you to have 4 teams in your own league or 5 teams or whatever you want because then it became about chasing money and getting playoff spots for money. So that we just blew right past that.
When Texas A&M and Missouri joined the SEC, which was right after Colorado and Nebraska joined 2 different conferences. It seems like, is that not the line in the sand where the SEC was doing really well, but they had not yet completely exploded. They had done well. But isn't that about the time when we started having these conference turf wars in the SEC? And it just seems like from that point on, and that's not their fault. They're really successful. But it just seemed like that might have been the timeline when we just got so regional.
I don't think it had anything to do with realignment, really. I think, to me, I think that the SEC was always very prideful. It just might not have been as on the radar because we didn't have the internet. We didn't have social media. We had newspapers. So you didn't really hear it's great to be a Florida Gator in your head 24/7 if you were looking, through college football news on social media or whatever, or Hook 'em or whatever. You're just kind of in your own bubble. And you didn't really get a lot of the fan crossover unless you were just interacting or mingling with fans in real life, basically, or maybe a little bit online, but nothing to the extent that it is now where it's just chaos. Like it's just a chaos machine. So I think part of that is being super tribal in everything. But I don't think it had anything to do with Missouri and
Tribal is
A&M.
a perfect word.
Missouri and A&M came into play in a way that Missouri makes the championship game that first year and then kind of went about their business. But Johnny Fever, I mean, that certainly lit the world on fire. That component of having A&M did. But to me, the tribalism, I think, was probably always there. We just didn't notice it. But when it really became apparent was when they started reeling off national title after national title after national title, starting with LSU and then with Florida. And then, you had USC briefly. You had Texas in 2005. But you had LSU and Florida, and here comes Alabama, and here's Auburn, here's Georgia. And so that's when where the kings of the world came into play.
Fish started actually in 2006 with his opinion when Florida won the national championship because Auburn was left out of the 2004 national championship game.
It's a very good point, too.
Absolutely. Good point, Fish. Appreciate that. SEC didn't want 8 because that's too few SEC teams in the playoffs.
Right, because you'd have then you would have had 5 conference champs. So you have 3 at larges, so that's not going to be enough for them.
That's okay. I would have been able to handle that. That's not too much of a problem. And USC Fish would have embarrassed Auburn. We don't know. They didn't play. When we come back.
But guess what? They would have had a chance to play in this formula, which is why a lot of people wanted a playoff, was because of Auburn getting snubbed or things like that, or Oklahoma getting, which was the year Oklahoma got blown out as well, which just further reinforced the idea that they got snubbed. But yeah, that's when you started to have, well, wait a second, what are split national champions? That's stupid. Why don't Nebraska and Michigan in 97 play each other and see who the real national champion is? And so that's the kind of things that I think added up to where you're like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Split national titles and undefeated teams getting snubbed and not having a chance to play for it. This is kind of BS. What kind of system is this?
But they've been doing that forever. There were split national titles in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, but
there's lots of things we've done forever that turned out to not be great.
No,
yeah, but there was no internet to constantly call them on it.
Yeah.
So there are
Paul, there was a thing called the newspaper.
Yeah, and guess what? It was a local newspaper or one guy in a national newspaper, and if you didn't like, Scoops McGinty, you could just shut him down.
Where does he work?
I mean, if the New York Times, you just didn't have to take his call. But if every single day you are forced to answer these questions over and over again from different people from all parts of the country and all fan bases, as opposed to insulating yourself in your ivory tower like they were, then you have to maybe make some changes.
Yeah.
You could run and hide back in the day. You can't anymore.
Yeah, there had been split championships, including Texas and Nebraska, and I think 1970 was one. All right, when we come back, we will hear from Mitch Light on the college baseball tournament and then getting ready for the super regionals. Chris Fanini on a lot of what we've discussed in the first hour. We have a lot to get to. We appreciate you every day for your time. And this is 365 Sports. Doug Furch and Paul Thorpe, they run the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement Department and wanted me to let you know that you can check them out on Facebook. Coming up, the Texas Tour of Coaches in DFW, Houston, also in San Antonio. Coaches from all the schools around Texas will be cross-section here and there, flying across the country to meet with their alums, fans, and donors. Also, there's the fall kickoff luncheon in August with former Baylor quarterback Nick Florence, home tailgating, and also Bears on the road. Their first one will be when they play up in Dallas against SMU. Also, they'll be tailgating to the Bush Library on the SMU campus. It's the Baylor Alumni Fan Engagement.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions, IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We have had all sorts of coverage, of course, this the week that everything moves into the super regionals, and then they eventually get to Omaha. Mitch Light has been with us since back a couple of times during the as the conference play was winding down last week with the tournament set, and now the super regionals are set. Mitch, what a hell of a weekend it was for college baseball. You had some flex their muscles, and you had some Cinderella stories, and some that maybe should not be labeled Cinderella. Your thoughts?
Yeah, a little bit of everything, just like you said. And I hope, as a college baseball fan and advocate, I hope that the sport gains some followers this weekend. And, there's it's like the NCAA tournament in basketball. It's like Thursday morning through Sunday night. Well, college baseball, you got Friday morning, 11 a.m. all the way through Monday night, midnight last night with some incredible drama. It's just so much fun when a team like Murray State can get it done. I feel bad for Ole Miss fans. They look like they were about ready to party there last night, coming back from 12 to 3. And obviously a tough weekend for the SEC, which a lot of people around the nation are reveling in, and I get it. That league gets a lot of credit during the season, and deservedly so for its success in the postseason in recent years. But yeah, just incredible drama. Murray State comes to mind. Little Rock, if they could have beaten LSU last night, I don't know. Some people on social media last night were talking about a comparison in other sports. You're talking about a team with a losing overall record, what they lost like their last 7 regular season games, going down into Baton Rouge, and if they could have pulled that off, it would have been one of the great sports upsets of all time.
Mitch, which upset were you most surprised to see, and which one were you actually least surprised to see?
Wasn't shocked that Texas did not get out of its regional. We talked throughout the season. This is no slight on the Longhorns, but they did not play great down the stretch. Not a elite team, a very good team that had a very, very good regular season. And anytime you don't go 22-8 or whatever they did in the SEC by accident and win the league by 2 games. But just not, Jim Schlossnagle will have better rosters at Texas, which is a good thing for Texas because, like I said, they won the SEC. I don't think Vanderbilt was the best team in the country. I think they deserved their seed. I'm just very surprised how poorly they played offensively, because this was a team that was not good offensively for the first 2 months and was very good in the last 6 weeks and hit the ball out of the ballpark a lot. And they just got stymied by Wright State twice, basically offensively in Louisville. I think they got 4 hits or fewer in both games. So I guess I'm not stunned that Vanderbilt did not win its regional. I'm stunned about how poorly they played because they'd been playing so well, capped off by that SEC tournament victory the week before.
Mitch, a couple of Big 12 teams find their way into the next round. Arizona and North Carolina will duel, and then West Virginia gets LSU. Your thoughts on those two advancing and your thoughts on their prospects in this next phase?
Yeah, Arizona's really, really good team. They had a kind of an uneven regular season, but a really good team that was kind of in the hosting mix. I think, unfortunately, for these both Big 12 teams, they've got very difficult teams to play. North Carolina had an argument to be a top 3 or 4 seed, maybe slighted a little bit by the selection committee. They're a legit national championship contender. So I wouldn't be surprised. At this stage, you can't be surprised by anything. I think West Virginia going into LSU is a tougher task. LSU is built for a super regional. They've got 2 elite starting pitchers, and that's basically what you need to win a super regional. So if West Virginia can somehow force a game 3, we saw what LSU, their pitching wasn't great as they got deeper into this regional this past weekend. If they can force a game 3, I like West Virginia's chances a lot. I'm not going to sit here and pick either Arizona or West Virginia, but I would give Arizona a much better chance to win.
Of the 5 ACC teams, is anyone in that group a surprise to you that they're in the super regionals?
I think maybe Miami, like I use the term a lot, but an uneven regular season. Theirs was extremely uneven. They think they won their first 2 series. They lost their next 5. They might have won their next 5, and then they ended with a 2-game losing streak. This is a national power in college baseball. Those, my age and remember in the 90s, but have been kind of an afterthought for the past decade. So for them to go down to the Southern Miss, and they won their first 2 games, but to get to they got pushed to a game 7 to win in the fashion they did last night with some really good pitching. I would say Miami would be the surprise. Duke is a good program that has not been able to break through. They've been to 3 previous super regionals under Chris Pollard, all on the road. The fact that they won in Athens, Georgia was a surprise to me. The fact that they're in the super regional, if you would have told me a month ago, I wouldn't be surprised because they have a lot of very high top-end talent in that roster.
What do you think of the Coastal Carolina-Auburn matchup there? Coastal, we talked about it before. They're the 12th overall national seed, but if you put one of those power conferences behind their name, I really feel like they would be maybe a top 8, maybe even top 6 or so seed.
Yeah, they had a really good resume. They dominated their league. The Sun Belt wasn't great this year. It was very good at the top. So that gaudy record was probably a product of some bad teams at the bottom, but they did very well in midweek games. I think they beat Clemson, I know, at least once. So very good roster. It's funny, I'm looking at the matchups, and I could be wrong here, but maybe UTSA and UCLA both cruise, but Coastal Carolina and Auburn are kind of 2 teams that just barely broke a sweat in the regionals. Coastal, I know game 3 against East Carolina, or the deciding game was 1-0. It was late, but they weren't forced into a game 7. They didn't have to play Monday. Auburn, I kind of watched very little of Auburn this weekend because they always seem to be in control. So, this is one of the seeded matchups we get. Both those teams won. So I think it's going to be really fun. Coastal Carolina is a program that expects to win, and they have a chip on their shoulder. Auburn is a very young team. Now, it's a program that's been to Omaha twice in the past 6 years, I believe, but most of these guys are young and new. I haven't really put a ton of thought, but I could see Coastal going in there and just playing with a ton of confidence in winning that series.
Mitch, how often do you think this will be the case where you have a handful of schools that aren't necessarily from the haves group of things? I mean, it's no different than the NCAA tournament. Basketball schools move on, but getting to Omaha is a different matter. Do you think baseball can kind of keep this, or do you think it's the waning days where suddenly the money will gobble up everything?
That's one of the charms of college baseball, that you've got programs like Southern Miss and Coastal Carolina. And, I know they haven't fared well in the postseason, but Northeastern, kind of random programs that have baseball tradition where their schools have put resources towards baseball. So I think we will keep seeing these teams from the mid majors or low majors. I haven't put this theory to the test. Everything's so new in college sports,
right?
But I think what we might be seeing is what we're seeing in the Sun Belt, a league that in past years has had a lot of depth. Didn't have much depth this year. Coastal Carolina was really good. Southern Miss was good. Troy did not make the tournament, but had a good year. After that, there was a lot of fall off. So I think we'll see these programs that have baseball tradition, that care, that put the financial resources, they will stay good and win. But I think a lot of these mid-major leagues will fall off from the middle to the bottom, and we won't see the overall depth in college baseball. But I expect, again, that these mid-majors, they'll still be trickling in and getting to super regionals, maybe one to Omaha every few years.
We had Pat Hallmark, Mitch, on the show yesterday, and of course the story you brought up, Texas, is a little wobbly, even though they had won the SEC in the regular season. What an incredible story. He talked about his time with Wayne Graham at Rice. Did you know that when Rice upset Texas in football many years ago, he helped tear down the goalpost? He did not deny it.
I saw the picture online, and it was great. Yeah, I mean, that's just what you love about college sports, and I'm sure that was a great night for Rice football. But yeah, what a great story there. And I'm sure you guys heard him say this, and I credit coaches for their honesty. And I don't know how much of a shot he meant it, but, talking about some of the transfers they lost. And I don't know if he was talking specifically about Ruger Riojas, the pitcher who transferred to Texas, but I think he said in his press conferences, like, if we had those two guys, we wouldn't be here. Now, I think he maybe framed it like, because we got other guys who replaced them who played an integral role. But I loved his honesty, and that's a program right there that doesn't have a lot of tradition. They've been good in recent years, but they went in to Austin and expected to win and were the better team. There was nothing fluky about what the Roadrunners did last weekend.
Brian O'Connor to Mississippi State from UVA. What do you think about that hire, Mitch?
Yeah, really good hire, obviously. And I was kind of, joking with I have some Mississippi State friends here in Nashville. I was like, oh, yeah, good job, guys. You hired a coach who had the number 2 team, consensus number 2 team in the preseason and didn't make a regional. Good job, good hire. But, obviously I'm kidding there. Yeah, great track record, highly respected. Coaches like that have been in one place for a while, some of them are lifers and they're very comfortable. Some of them maybe get that itch. Now, Virginia is a public school, but Mississippi State's kind of a different animal from a resource standpoint. So he's done a lot there. He's won a national championship. He sees the SEC money. I can see him saying, you know what? I'm at the age right now where I want another 8 to 10 year run. I can go to Mississippi State and have all the resources and compete in the best league there. So I'm not shocked he left, even though Virginia's a great job and a great place to live and all that. So just adding another amazing coach to the SEC at a program that has all the resources they need to win.
Well, one of the questions, I watched that game last night, a lot of it while I was doing some work at home, and Oregon State drilled USC. And they enjoyed that because of the fact that the conference is broken up. They're not considered any kind of dark horse, are they? Aren't they? Because they've won national titles. This is something, that's who they are.
That's a good way to say it. That's who they are. They had the I don't know what the right word is, guys, gumption or whatever, when they got left behind. They didn't follow Washington State to the Mountain West Conference for baseball or the West Coast Conference, which they participate in other sports. They said, we are Oregon State baseball. We're going to go out on our own. They came up with an independent schedule, a very good schedule, played a lot of road games that was RPI friendly. And I'm one of the people, I kind of doubted them. I don't know. Didn't know if they deserved that top 8 seed. Thought their RPI was a little bit inflated by a lot of road games. Didn't have a lot of great wins. They lost 4 straight to Oregon in one stretch of the season. But no doubt about it, winning is in that program's DNA. They got a great roster. Their shortstop, a transfer from Washington, Ava Arquette, is outstanding. Trent Caraway's been on fire. Gavin Turley, they got 2 guys with 18 home runs. So this is going to be a tough matchup with Florida State. It just tells you the importance of the seeding. Like in sports, in college sports, I guess, obviously the college football playoff, there's important seeds with home games, but the difference between being the number 8 national seed and the number 9 national seed in college sport and college baseball is enormous. Florida State has to get on a plane from Tallahassee. I don't know if there's any direct flights. Well, I'm sure they're chartering, but from Tallahassee all the way to Corvallis. So that's going to be a great series.
Yeah. When I saw the matchup, Mitch, it's like a 3,000 mile big deal, that 8 and 9 there. I was kind of hoping to say, like, I don't understand Oregon State. Their regional was terrible and they'll lose in 2 games. But do you think, like, when you look at the matchup, like, that might be the one that is the most even among all these? I mean, not just because it's 8-9, but like the way that, like, they match up, like, pitcher for pitcher, 9 for 9 in the lineup.
Yeah, a lot of depth in both lineups. The pitching, obviously, it looks like, Jamie Arnold's gone Friday night for them most of the year, or I guess all year. And Oregon State's probably best pitcher from a stuff standpoint is Dax Whitney, who goes on Saturday. So you might not see that, ace for ace. But yeah, I very even. Oregon State's very offensive. They play well in that home stadium. It's not a big park, but it's rowdy. I don't know if it's Florida State rowdy, but it's rowdy, and that's going to be a tough environment. I think a lot of teams from the SEC and the ACC look at Oregon State. Not sure they respect the program, but they might not respect the baseball acumen, fans and all that. But they got great fans, and it's going to be a difficult place for the Seminoles to play.
The tournament was set up with all of those, 13 teams out of the SEC. Sankey even said we should have had 14. Now they have 3 left. I mean, they did take a beating, but they're guaranteed somebody in Omaha because Tennessee and Arkansas are going to play. And then LSU, you mentioned that game series against West Virginia. Did they get bruised? They don't feel it. I'm sure there's discussion like, what the hell happened to us? But how much of a bruise was it?
Yeah, it's you can't deny it. And, it's baseball is a high variance sport. So there's going to be upsets, but there's a reason it's double elimination because there's going to be upsets. And you can't have the number 1 overall national seed and the number 2 overall national seed and both get eliminated, one of them not even get to the regional finals, and just make excuses. SEC has to just accept what happened. They can go on, and let's say Arkansas wins the national title. that would be 6 different champions in the last 6 seasons, full seasons, which is an amazing accomplishment. That to me is the SEC, how they can pound their chest the most, is because it's not just one team like LSU winning 3 straight in the 90s. It's been 5 different programs. This could be 6 different programs. So we'll see what unfolds. If there's 2 teams in Omaha or still 3 teams in Omaha, then the SEC can still say, okay, we had a bad first couple weekends, but here we are. But no doubt about it, it was a bad tournament. I still think the SEC is by far the best league. The ACC, have been saying it all year. This isn't rocket science. ACC is very good at the top. Programs like Florida State, like North Carolina, they can compete with anyone. I just don't think the ACC has nearly the depth that the SEC has had in recent years.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to overlook Auburn, obviously, in that interesting series with the Coastal Carolina. Can you promise Paul Catalina that Florida State is going to win a national championship?
Yes, guarantee it right now. Going to beat Oregon State in 2, so they don't have to use all their pitching. Get set up for Omaha, and not a problem at all. I am going to Omaha for the first weekend to cover it for the Athletic, and I'll be sure to get you plenty of Florida State gear.
Oh, thank you. I want to go so badly, Mitch. I really do, and I know that one day I will. But I think I want to go when FSU is not in it, so I can just enjoy the baseball as opposed to immersing myself in this curse, which right now I don't believe it's anything other than that.
Yeah, I totally get what you're talking about. Like sometimes when you're watching your team, you don't enjoy it. Like, was the game fun? No, it wasn't fun. That was 3 hours of hell, But if you can just go watch, I've been to Omaha as a fan. I'm going as a media member for the first time. I've sat in the bleachers. I saw a Florida State Michigan game, I think, in 2019. Sit in the bleachers with my son. It was like the greatest night ever. It's just a great. Omaha does an amazing job with it. I highly recommend it for anyone who hasn't been, especially that first weekend, because you got all 8 fan bases there. It's a little more expensive that weekend. Prices go down, hotels go down as fan bases leave, but highly recommend it.
Thank you very much, Mitch. It's been great. Thanks for your time. Enjoy Omaha after this weekend, of course.
Thanks, guys. Enjoyed the conversation. Take care.
Mitch Light, theathletic.com, with us on the baseball. 16 teams, 8 sites, and the winners will move on to play in Omaha, Nebraska. We were there when we went to go watch that Nebraska-Illinois game. We went by the stadium and saw when
Did you fly into Omaha?
Fly into Omaha, then you drive up the road a little bit to Lincoln, and we went by there. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous setting.
Yeah, Omaha's a cool town. It's got kind of like a little, what would you consider it?
Sleepy town?
I guess it's kind of a sleepy town. It had a little Austin flavor to it in a certain street.
A long time ago, Austin, yeah.
Yeah, like old Austin.
Like Tulsa is now? If you've not been to Tulsa.
I have not been to Tulsa.
Am I right, Emery? Tulsa's kind of like that.
Yeah,
now.
not like hippie, but just kind of chill and it's got some cool spots to it. The ballpark, we couldn't go inside, but it's definitely cool to be there in person, walk around the statues outside and look through the gates as best we could. And, you can see where it's a lot of fun. If you get the right hotel and get a couple days down there or whatever it ends up being, you can see where you can have a lot of fun in that town and hang out with a lot of cool fans from across the country. So, yeah, that'd definitely be a destination or a want to on my list of sporting events. I'd love to go to the College World Series and check that out if I had a team involved.
Yeah, they unfortunately, the team that's just around the corner. Well, Creighton, I don't know if Creighton's been there. I know Nebraska was there once or twice back when they were in the Big 12, but didn't get anything out of it. So when we come back, Chris Vanini covers college football, athletic.com. He's next. This is 365 Sports. By the way, thanks to both all 3 of them, Garrett Ross and Emery Winter, Andrew Valade, for being a part of what they do every day here on 365 Sports. Coming up, I was there today. I went by Don Chimador and Coffee Beans. Joshua and Cheyenne were there. I'm headed to go down and see my brothers down in Florida on Thursday for a few days. And we will be up on the balcony on the beautiful, beautiful 17th floor and smoking some cigars and just kind of reminiscing about many, many things. Lone Star Cut and Light event going on at Don Chimador. It will be June the 12th. They will have a taco truck, Bear Arms Brewery, reps from McAuliffe, Mayfin, and also Roma Craft Cigars who are there. And also telling you, of course, there'll be some specials too. So that's June the 12th. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans, 48-foot walk-in humidor. I love Rocky Patel, but I've gotten to the point where I really enjoy because of the length, the flavor, the taste. and I'm not talking about, you know what I mean, if you smoke cigars, the aroma of the Monte Cristo White Label, the Churchill Late cigar. I got a few of those for the week, too. It's Don Chubador and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Alan Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Alan Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC. An equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
365 Sports, we are on until 6. Got a busy schedule. Craig's off the radars around the corner. Garrett, do we have Chris? Chris Vanini, theathletic.com with us. Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, David Smoak on 365 Sports. Chris, thank you very much for your time. We got a lot of college football, some turf war, et cetera, to get into. But I did see where you said you spent several hours playing the latest EA Sports College Football 26. Is that correct?
Yeah, me and a couple other reporters were invited down to Orlando last week to test out the game a bit. I wrote up my thoughts on The Athletic, as well as talked about it on our podcast, Bunch Formation. So got a lot of insight on there, but it was fun.
What were some changes that you liked and maybe one or two things that you're not so sure about?
Well, one of the big ones, it's kind of more for dynasty mode, but real coaches are in the game now. So last year they had real players. Now they've got real coaches. Not all of them, not everybody's agreed to it, but head coaches and coordinators. There's an image of Steve Sarkisian with Arch Manning that they've got. So that's kind of interesting. High school mode is back in Road to Glory, which I think should be pretty fun. And so, yeah, there's nothing like majorly different, obviously, because last time the game was coming out after 11 years away, new consoles and whatnot, but everything runs a lot smoother. You can do cross-play Dynasty on Xbox and PS2 now, which I like because I'm an Xbox guy. It's what I have for the game. And there's some questions I don't know. We didn't get to play the full game. Not sure about certain things, but a lot of little things I think a lot of people are going to like. There were kind of a couple big holes in 25, and those have been filled for 26.
I read that you mentioned that every time a receiver gets hit, he doesn't drop the ball now, which I will thoroughly enjoy, as it has cost me a couple of national championships, Chris.
Yeah, it took playing it for a while before I realized, I was like, wait a minute, these guys aren't dropping every single pass in traffic. So, and I asked them about it, and the developer said yes, they realized that was, it was happening too much, so that was fixed.
Chris, there is. You want to ask another question about the video game?
Good, yeah.
Chris, there is this give and take. It seems like it's annual about the college football playoff. How many automatic qualifiers? It's gone kind of back and forth. What were your thoughts about last week with Sankey and Destin, and then even the Big 12 and the ACC wanting what they want, maybe to try to say, hey, wait a minute, we're not just going to go down by you bullying us. What are your thoughts about what's going on with that?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was over there at Big 12 meetings, and they much prefer a 5+11, even if that means they get fewer bids than they would otherwise. The 4-4-2-2, if you go by past history, which is kind of what the Big Ten is sort of basing this on, Big 12 wouldn't get 2 bids necessarily every year. So theoretically, the pitch is it's better for you to get guaranteed 2. But the Big 12 and the ACC don't like, fully codifying themselves as second tier behind the Big 12, behind the Big 10 and the SEC. So their pitch is that, and they hope the SEC agrees. The SEC is kind of mixed. A lot of the athletic directors like the 4-4-2-2. They like the guarantees. They like the play-in tournament that will bring some more money. But a lot of the coaches don't. And a lot of the coaches, they feel like it goes against the spirit of competition, which is, we shouldn't be guaranteed more spots than somebody else. Now, everybody can complain about the committee because that's always been the case, but they prefer the idea of earning it on the field rather than having it preset going into a season.
Chris, I've heard a lot of the debate from people saying that the 5+11 is the dumbest format for ACC and Big 12, particularly the Big 12, because they're the one that only got one team in last year out of the Power 4. But you kind of touched on it about not just codifying that those conferences are better. It's a big bet on themselves, but there's really no other way for them to grow as a conference and make themselves better if they just kind of sit back, is there?
Well, yes, and that's part of what the Big 12 people told me. It's like, is that going to be? Are we going to get fewer bids in the 5+11? Maybe, but not if we play better, and not if we do better, and not if we earn the more amount of bids, which is kind of the whole pitch for the whole thing. It's kind of, there's a look in for the next contract a couple years into the new contract, but if those spots are already guaranteed, it kind of sets it, retells itself. What pitch can the Big 12 make if they weren't able to get more teams in because of the way the format is set up? So it's like a situation where, say, the 6th place Big 10 team that wouldn't have been in otherwise wins a play-in game and gets in. That knocks the 3rd place Big 10 team down a little bit, but maybe that 3rd place Big 10 team stays ahead of a Big 12 team. That's where a lot of the concern is. A lot of the people don't like it. It's essentially the safety net in 16-team model, which is even if you lose one of those playing games, you could still get in via one of those 3 at-large spots. And a lot of people feel like that might be a bit too much. So it's kind of back and forth. The Big Ten's all about this. The Big Ten doesn't want to do anything else unless the SEC moves to 9 conference games. The SEC doesn't want to move to 9 conference games unless they do the playoff first. So unless they do the AQs. So kind of 50-50, I think, on which way it's going to go.
Chris, I saw your latest piece talking about college football and the auto bids and the Champions League, which was very interesting. And I remember Bill Connolly bringing up the parallels between college football and Champions League and European international soccer years ago. And I'm sure I've probably read pieces by you and others that have done it as well. But is it shocking to you how closely parallel it's starting to get in terms of college football and something like the Champions League over in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I've always said that college football is more like European soccer than it is the NFL. You don't draft players. You recruit them and you sign them, and you get in the big teams take the players from the lower teams, and teams aren't going to relocate. They're a part of the community. In the fan base, the fans are more involved and have influence on things. It's always been more like soccer. And so this 4-4-2-2 format would only be more like it, because the Champions League got like 50 something teams in it, because there's all these different countries, and 80 something bids. The top 5 leagues get 4 guaranteed. The next one gets 3. The next few get 2. And now it's generally the same leagues getting those 4 bids every year, England, Spain, and whatnot. But you have to earn that by your performance in European competition from the year prior. So it's a little bit different, because the Champions League is an ongoing tournament during the season as opposed to like a postseason tournament.
Right.
But it's not the idea that the Big Ten is pushing uneven auto bids. There's nothing like that in American sports, but it's not unprecedented elsewhere.
Chris, we were having a discussion back in our first hour about the criteria, and that was brought up again last week as well, on the criteria of how you make the college football playoff. And then I just happened to throw this out there, the committee itself that is put together. Do you feel like how they put the committee together is the best way? We discussed, Craig mentioned that there should be no current ADs on the committee. Mac Rhodes at Beta, we know him. He's a dude. He's a hell of a athletic director. How would you like to see the committee set up?
I don't know. It's tough. Like, it's not just athletic directors. Like, there's a few of them on there, but there's also former players. There's former coaches. There's a media member spot. Like, it is a mix of people. And it's notable that, like, the committee, when it sets its rankings and everything, that's not a unanimous selection. Everybody makes their votes and picks their teams for various things, and then it comes out eventually to a number that averages all out. So it's not like they all agree on anything. I don't know what else you would do. Every other college sport does this. It's not like one person has the power to put a team in over somebody else. Sometimes a lot of those older coaches, they have their own biases toward maybe the style of certain teams play. They don't like the gimmicks of something, or maybe they don't like a certain coach who said something about them many years ago. It's like, that's why it's 13 people. That's why it's a different a kind of people. I don't really know what else people want. Are you going to take former ADs? How committed are they going to be to this? It's an impossible ask. But I would also say that over the 11 years we've done this, 12 years we've done this, there have only been a couple of controversies. Mm-hmm. One of them was Ohio State in 2014, going in over Baylor and TCU. One of them was Alabama going over undefeated Florida State in 2023. The rest of it was not many major arguments. I think last year we had an argument, but it's a little bit different because it's a 12-team field, and I don't understand all the caping for Alabama, who got blown out by a bad Oklahoma team and lost to Vandy. It's kind of embarrassing for the SEC that is the team you're hanging your hat on as to why the committee needs to change. The committee has given the SEC and the Big Ten the benefit of the doubt most of the time. Alabama got in the year prior over undefeated Florida State. I don't need to hear that Alabama is being treated unfairly by the committee. So it's a long way of saying there is no perfect solution. The auto bid idea, I would have loved this like 25 years ago when the conferences were the same, they were normal size, everybody played everybody in your conference. Then you could set that up. But I don't like giving these conferences an out that they went to 18, 16 teams, and so we have to change it for them. They're the ones who messed this up in the first place.
Yep, great point.
Yeah, Chris, it was just very bizarre to me to see the propaganda on all of it, and how that you kind of just leave. Of course, that's propaganda. You don't really leave in those details of who they lost to. Do you think that a fair Ken Palm rating can be made for college football like it could for college basketball that they could go by?
Well, that's kind of what hockey does. Hockey has the pairwise rankings, which generally typically always match up with what the committee does. It's a formula that's meant to kind of predict what the committee does, and it kind of goes by that. But I wouldn't use one singular formula because every formula has its own holes. I mean, how many times do we hear people were gimmicking the RPI or gimmicking the net by scheduling certain games because it would help them in the formula? Like, there's all of that. And if you go back to the BCS, we had that, and people didn't like that either. People didn't like when the media picked it. People didn't like when the computers were involved. Now people don't like when a committee does it. Like, come on, like what are we really doing here? And if you look at what the BCS, there's a Twitter account, BCS Know-How, that has what the BCS computers had versus what the committee has. And it's usually pretty much the same thing. A couple teams go higher or lower, which is fair to do if you take into account head-to-heads and transitive properties and all that. So, you could do that. That's why I don't understand the SEC's complaining we need to change the criteria. Like, how? Like the committee has metrics. They have all these things. It's not like they don't know strength of schedule is there. I've gone through the mock committee. I see it. So I would like to know the specifics of what that means. Are we just going to give the teams with the highest strength of schedule, put them in no matter what happens? Like, I don't. Yes. It's kind of more of a threat to the committee to be like, kind of working the refs a little bit more than anything else. I don't know how specifically you do that when you have the whole point of a committee is that it's kind of subjective.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, and that's the best part about it. And then again,
the whole reason the committee's a topic. The whole reason the committee's a topic is because what he just said. Because Sankey is pushing back, so that's why people are going, well, what else is there to do, or what? How else could you possibly do this? And you're right. There's only so many things you can possibly do. So I guess, Chris, the answer is just at what point is the people in charge satisfied enough to just leave well enough alone? Are we ever going to get to that point, I guess, is the question. But, I guess there's just no satisfying some parties, maybe.
No, and it applies to everything in society. I mean, I wrote this when the Big Ten suspended Jim Harbaugh over the Connor Stallions stuff. It's like, if people want to leave the NCAA, people hate all the referees, people hate this, like, everybody just complains and complains more than ever before. And there's more of a kind of burn it down mentality in every aspect of society than we've ever had before. Mm-hmm. We don't like the institutions. Something's got to change, this and that and this and that, because the various people in power are more beholden to their stakeholders, to their donors, than they are to the sport as a whole. And no one really wants to be like, you know what? Well, a couple people, Jim Phillips, the ACC was like, I don't agree with this. Florida State should have gotten in, but you have to respect the process. And Florida State got really mad and sued to leave the conference. So like, there's no making anybody happy anymore. And I think everybody involved loses track of what's best for the thing as a whole because everybody's too focused on what's best for themselves.
No, I completely 100% agree with you, and it's just outside of college football. But another example of we need a body to give us rules and tell us what to do, and then as soon as the NCAA says, "Hey, you broke the rules," oh, I'm suing you in court.
Yeah.
So it's like
exactly.
Chris, you mentioned the Florida State, ACC, Clemson. What I saw the note. Matt Baker today said they've all agreed just to move on, and the best part is they're all going to have to pay for their own attorney and legal fees. How about that year and a half of hell?
Yeah, it was kind of wrapped up, a couple months ago when they announced kind of they're tweaking how the money is distributed and that stuff. So it just took a little bit more time to fully finalize it in court and wrap that up and who pays for the lawyers and yada, yada. So ultimately it's going to get us to a spot where there's going to be some unequal revenue sharing in the ACC. And I think it furthers the chances that the ACC kind of blows up or at least loses a couple schools in the early 2030s. But it keeps the league together, for the next 5 years. And that's ultimately where everybody's at.
My last question for you. A lot of schools will implement certain things on July the 1st. Many schools have already gone forward planning that they're going to be a part of the House versus NCAA settlement. Has this now dragged on longer than you thought, and what could be going on?
It is longer than I thought. longer than everybody thought. But the fact that she didn't approve it the first time around is kind of what has further dragged this on. I think yesterday the judge approved the extension of some various deadlines. Some people think that means it's just continuing to work on the approval, and you want to have a detailed approval that makes it harder to appeal that approval. The feeling is this still likely passes, but like you said, we're getting closer and closer to implementation here. The baseball portal's open, and a lot of things people thought would be done by now are not.
Chris, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great week. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Chris Vanini, theathletic.com, on so much that's going on, including, I saw some of the national writers, Amanda Kristovich and others, talking about, she put up a tweet. Did you see that one where she said, "Hey, babe," or whatever it was, and then she updated it like she was someone trying to reach their girlfriend and reaching out to Judge Wilkin as it continually just not drags on, because apparently there was a little bit of an extension. They'll get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I guess they get till June 27th to make it. I don't know. The thing I've seen from like a lot of the legal minds, Tom Mars and Mitt Winter, is judges have their timeline. The rest of the timeline is inconsequential. It just is. So, so that we'll find out about that when we find out about it.
When we come back, off the radar, Craig Smoak around the corner. Jerry Glasgow, head coach at Texas Tech, into the championship series against UT. That and more. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Marcos.com, fastest growing pizza brand in America. You can go online and order a pizza for you to go buy and pick it up on your way home, or for Marcos to deliver. And you have different codes that you can use if you want to. For example, that triple pepperoni magnifico, which a pepperoni pizza from Marcos is really good, whatever crust you want, thin or regular. But now you can even add more to it. Pepperoni and Italian sausage magnifico, loaded with all sorts of protein on the top. And you get to pick what you want. Create your own pizza. Have them deliver it. You pick it up. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
In our logo and advertising, we say we are people that you can count on. What does that mean? It starts with providing a quality vehicle and quality service at a fair price. But it also means we do what we say we will do, and we treat people fairly with respect. It starts by hiring great people, good local folks who work hard with a caring attitude. Our employees are the real reason we are people that you can count on. Put us to the test and see for yourself that at Richard Car Motors, we are people you can count on.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports. Segment on Tuesdays and Thursdays, taking a look at grab bag of stories, depending on kind of what's been going on or what's going on any given day, especially those newsy types of days. It can be a little bit of breaking news. Not so much the case today. A special day, actually, because I'm going to hand it over to Paul, who's got your fresh WNBA mock draft.
Well, I mean, they just had the draft. They just had it like a couple months ago. They don't need one now.
Can you focus in on him right now?
I wanted to try and catch Paul as possibly off guard as I could. And so, yes, you are correct. I'm happy that you knew they did have a draft. In fact, the season's been going on for a couple of months now.
Yeah, you're improving, man.
Yes, just making sure everyone's paying attention here. Mm-hmm. That's for later on in the year, Paul's WNBA mock draft. But no, there is.
Next year, I'm going to do one.
I wish that you would. Yeah. Look at what I created. Look at what I did in a roundabout way. I've got you now doing WNBA coverage. So look at that. Look at how smart I am. So anyways, there is some news in the regular NBA going on today as pretty out of nowhere firing as far as I'm concerned. The Knicks just eliminated from the playoffs have fired head coach Tom Thibodeau today. And I know there was some criticism, obviously, when you don't go win the whole damn thing. But the Knicks just knocked out of the Eastern Conference Finals in what was a pretty fun series, although definitely tilted more towards Indiana's way. And clearly they're the team that ends up advancing. But the Knicks made it fun and competitive. And Tom Thibodeau is now officially out. They had made their first conference final since 2000. He finished with 24 playoff wins in New York, which, according to ESPN research, was 17 more playoff wins than the past 13 Knicks head coaches combined. So that is pretty insane.
Between Pat Riley and him. And that's a long time ago that Pat Riley was coach of the Knicks.
Yeah, no, it's been a very long time. I mean, that was my childhood, basically. The sources around the league, according to ESPN, say that the Knicks decided a new voice was needed to lift the franchise to the next level, despite their best playoff stretch and best stretch of play in a very, very long time, including making it to the conference finals. So they made some moves last summer and felt like it was less than the sum of its parts, according to the article I read earlier today. So they've got some good pieces, but I guess they want to get better defensively, and now they are going to move on to the next man in charge. And I feel like when you do that in the NBA, you kind of have the same list for everybody almost, it feels like. Now, there might be a change or two here and there, but how about that? You've had the most successful stretch of basketball in like 30, 40 years. You just made the Eastern Conference Finals. You didn't get blown out. It was very much Indiana was clearly the better team, but you were competitive, and now you're being fired. And this is one of those scenarios. It's like with the Dallas Stars right now. It's like you feel as though you should have gotten over the hump of making the conference finals, right? You made the conference finals. What is it, 3 years in a row?
3 years in a row.
3 years in a row, Pete DeBoer has made the conference finals. And 3 years in a row, they failed to make the Stanley Cup and go win the Stanley Cup. But what's the alternative? The guy who doesn't make the playoffs, who doesn't make the conference finals? Like, at what point are you so close you can taste it that you make that move? And then at what point are you in that same spot, but you make the wrong move and you slide back down? It's not like you just automatically maintain where you are, and then you go, oh, and we just add this guy, and we'll be over the top. Yeah. You could very well go backwards, like the Knicks should know all too well. So just an interesting move. Maybe it was more well-known in New York City and in actual basketball circles, but I was surprised to see that.
What did they say they wanted to play better, have better defense? Is that right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what a team that Craig used to like made moves because they wanted to be better on
okay,
defense.
so-
got hammered. Of course, that was still an incredible
Carl
done.
Anthony Towns has essentially gotten him fired from his last 2 jobs because he was there before. But they say that about Carl Anthony Towns. But the odds are out. Craig, do you want to hear Bet Online's odds for the next
absolutely.
coach? Okay, Mike Malone is going off at 1-1 right now. You're not going to make any money betting Mike Malone. Look, he's got a ring. He just got let go by Denver.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be the obvious
He's from New
choice.
York.
Yeah, he's from New York.
Well, there's your head coach of the
Yeah,
New York Knicks,
so-
folks. Looks like it's beat Mike Malone.
Now, at 3-2, which obviously none of these people have asked Jay Wright, but Jay Wright is its players. Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Josh Hart are there, but I think Jay Wright is loving his life right now, and he, didn't want to deal with college divas. He definitely doesn't want to deal with NBA divas. Like it's just done for him for coaching. Jeff Van Gundy at 6-1, who used to be the coach of the Knicks. Chris Quinn at 7-1. Danny Hurley at 9-1. And I would think if there's an NBA job he would take, it would be this one. It's kind of a fit. He doesn't have to go and help LeBron win that one last title. But there's other names. Mark Jackson 16-1. John Calipari 45-1. So
that doesn't seem nearly as fun as it would have years and years ago, or interesting.
He is the 5th coach to take a team to the finals and get fired. Or get to the conference finals or NBA finals and then get fired that same year. The Celtics, Udoka was the last one before
but
this one.
He wasn't because of performance.
No,
He was.
Yeah.
Well, I guess maybe for performance,
Yeah.
just different kinds of performance. But he wasn't because on the court.
Yeah, so he has been fired and let go, and the Knicks will now go look for a new head coach. So pretty much a stunner out there in the NBA today with the firing of Tom Thibodeau, and now we will see if they will land a big fish. But meanwhile, still a couple days out, but you will have Indiana and Oklahoma City starting up on Thursday night in OKC, and hopefully that will be an interesting series, but a lot of I guess reaction that I've seen is thinking this thing could get really ugly because Oklahoma City is just so good and so deep. But either way, I know a lot of people out there don't care about the NBA, but that's what this segment is for the randomness of various other things that are out there to shake it up. And I'll stay on that, not for any further finals preview as we wait on game 1. And, 2 teams who we don't see hoisting trophies. I mean, the fact that you're going to have a brand spanking new NBA champion, I think is kind of cool. Although I know the TV network executives absolutely could not have drawn a worse draw than Indiana and Oklahoma City. I mean, this is the bottom rung for them. But from a fan perspective, there's some interesting things that you can attach yourself to.
Yeah, I think, this goes into that talk that people, have when, look, nobody's canceling their coverage. Like Amazon's not going to give it back to TNT now because this happened the year before they got it. It's just how it goes. And, it'll have less views than if it was the Knicks or the Celtics or the Lakers or one of those teams in it. But I mean, it's still going to be a cool story. And the other thing is there's still superstars in this game. I mean, SGA is a bona fide superstar. Tyrese Halliburton, bona fide superstar. And that's what really the NBA thrives on more than markets. So, yeah, it won't be as much as if you had a dense population center, in there. But, it's still going to be probably a pretty damn good finals, although Emery's hoping for a clean sweep with no games closer than 15 points.
Of course.
Indiana Pacers' last championship was when they were in the ABA before the merger. In 1973, they won 3 out of 4. George McGinnis and Rick Mount, names like that. It's been a long, long time.
Yes, well, Iowa State with Tyrese Halliburton and Brock Purdy getting that new contract, the success he's had, a pretty nice run for the Cyclones to have some premier top players that are making waves on the professional level. So I think you'll get a fair share of Cyclones watching the Pacers run continue. As for the rest of the country, I mean, I make the comment about TV ratings, but I don't give a damn about what the TV network executives want. I don't care what they want. I actually like most of the time when they don't get what they want. So, yeah, it would have been cool to see MSG in the finals and all of that. But I do think if you just like basketball, you're not worried about too much of the hoopla. You might have some of that, but you should have some good basketball here. Although heavy money is on the Oklahoma City Thunder. Meanwhile, the most popular thing about the NBA might very well be the people who cover the NBA, specifically inside the NBA, Charles Barkley and crew. They are getting set to make their transition over to ESPN starting next season. And Charles Barkley did speak on the Dan Patrick Show about his kind of time frame as they start to make this move. And remember, initially there was like pushback. It's like, well, if it's not TNT, I'm not doing it. And, Ernie Johnson's like saying, I'm a TNT guy. But Barkley did say that he is going to give ESPN and TNT 2 more years before he calls it quits. Said he signed the new contract with TNT last week that took 2 months to reach a deal between the two sides. And he does have a contract with 7 years left on it, but he said he's only willing to work 2 more years. He said, quote, I said I would work for 2 more years, and that's what I agreed to. I actually have 7 years left in my contract. Yeah, there's no way I'm working 7 years. I'm going to be a good soldier for Kenny, Ernie, and Shaq and the people I work with, but the best I can do is 2 years. He's 62 years old. So, it's still going to be an independent production, and it's basically on loan. But in regards to that, a lot of people worried about how the show might change. Well, clearly Charles isn't going anywhere. Everybody's going to pretty much stay together, just with a different outlet that they will be on. But ESPN has apparently said that they're not going to mess with like the show going super long. Like, how sometimes you'll be flipping through channels at like 11:45 at night and like there's still the post-game show going on with Inside the NBA. So you worry with ESPN, are they going to be able to do that? Well, ESPN says in so many ways that yes, they're going to have their freedom to go long and to basically be the show that they were. I'll believe it when I see it. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, but I don't know why you would mess with it when it's what attracted you to it in the first place.
I know that's the thing is how will ESPN be able to, keep their nose out of it and just take a show that's produced by somebody else and put it on their network. I think they've done, I would say a pretty good job. It depends on your opinion. They pretty much stay out of Pat McAfee's business. His show hasn't changed all that much. Now, maybe they should be in it a little bit more sometimes because he's made some pretty egregious errors on the air. But again, I think they still look are they in Stephen A. Smith's business? Not at all. If they were, I'm sure there's a lot of things that wouldn't even happen on that show. So I think that might be a little unfounded. What I worry about is them saying after like a few months, like, hey, why don't we pop these guys on your show? And they're going to be like, no, these are the guys on our show. And we're not going to have,
It's like when a Super Bowl's on a certain network and they show shots of certain people in their shows that they have on that.
So, are they going to be able to keep Stephen A. Smith and Kendrick Perkins off of Inside the NBA? I think that's the key because I think that's the line of separation that needs to exist is that if they're still going to have their NBA show, that needs to be that show, and Inside the NBA needs to be its own show. And Charles Barkley's made it pretty clear how he feels about the opinions of ESPN's NBA analysts. So.
Yes, he has. So there you go. There's a little bit of an update on Inside the NBA, which sometimes is more popular than the games themselves. And the playoffs starting again, back up, finals beginning, Pacers and Thunder here in a couple of days. Meanwhile, NFL. Good news, bad news. Good news is if you're a big fan of Madden, you now, much like the fans of the college football game, got their little dose last week. Now Madden fans get their dose of who's on the cover this year, and it is Saquon Barkley on the cover of Madden NFL 26. As you see there, the super athletic leap. That's a cool cover. I think it's a pretty cool cover shot for him. So Madden cover boy is announced. Paul, I know there's a lot of talk about the Madden curse and things of that nature, but you've recently gotten back onto college football. You're, I think, the only one in the studio really. Well, are you the only one that's really been playing Emory? Okay, I didn't know about Emory, but what about Madden? Is that anywhere in your target area?
I did this year buy the bundle because it was the special. So we'll see. I'm curious. I've heard some improvements are coming. So I'm curious about it. College football has just always been the way more fun game.
Yeah.
Like free, like the difference, like recruiting in the dynasty mode versus free agency and the draft in dynasty mode they haven't had for quite a long time or whatever. I don't know. I haven't been in it. So now the two games are together, so you can play from Road to Glory all the way through to Madden. So that's something that's interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I'll play it. I won't be as into it as I am for college football because it's just a far superior game.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of criticism about Madden here in the last few years. I've picked it up in a long time. I played a little bit of the college football game. But, yeah, that is, to be specific, that leap, that's his reverse leap that he did against the Jaguars, if y'all will remember that insane play.
Well, he did it like this picture. I saw the video. He recreated it in the studio, and it looked like he was on wires.
Yeah, I need to see if that's a real video or not because it did look very weird. And honestly, half the stuff I see on social media especially is fake now. Like, it is definitely a fake a lot of the time. So that looked weird to me. So, yeah, there is a video out here of him doing this exact recreation of the reverse leap against the Jaguars. But it just looks funky the way he jumps up. It looks like he's on wires. But if you're an Eagles fan, there is the Madden curse now to be a little concerned about. If you still believe in that type of thing, then Saquon is maybe a little bit concerned, a little bit of a concern for you more than he was prior to that cover shot. Meanwhile, the Vikings say goodbye today to a legend, Jim Marshall, longtime defensive end. Had the record for a very long time for the NFL record for most consecutive games played. Died at age 87 today after a long hospitalization. According to various media reports, he was on the original Vikings squad there in 1961. Played in every game that he was able to thereafter. 282 consecutive games all told. 270 straight games with the Vikings. And then it got broken eventually, that record, by Brett Favre in 2009, who was a Viking at the time that he broke that record. So that all ties in nicely to each other. But Marshall was, I think, congratulatory based on what I read about Favre breaking that record. It's not like Mercury Morris, where he's like actively rooting against people to break his records, but a legend. Lots of anecdotes and things. For example, he gained a permanent place in NFL Films lore in 1964 for returning a fumble the wrong way against the 49ers, celebrating a touchdown that instead turned out to be a safety. He was Vikings captain for 14 seasons, 4 Super Bowl appearances, member of the Purple People Eaters. Did not have his full sack statistics because they didn't start counting until 1982.
Like Deacon Jones.
Like Deacon Jones, he definitely doesn't have as much as he should have in that category. And I could go on and on and on, but I'll let you speak more to it since you are probably far more familiar with Jim Marshall and the type of player that he was than somebody like myself who's a little bit too young.
Yeah, that touchdown when he picked up the fumble was going the wrong way. It was always a staple for NFL Films and many others. The Purple People Eaters. Alan Page, Carl Eller, Jim Marshall, and the guy who is always left out is Gary Larson. Page and Eller are in the Hall of Fame. Marshall, of course, the stretch of playing think about it, like Favre did it at quarterback. That can be a very physical position, but to do it as a defensive lineman, to be able to play in that many games is insane.
You mean in that era where clips and chop blocks were pretty much legal? And
absolutely.
All those things. Yeah. No, it's very impressive. The Purple People Eaters in their post professional life were all pretty impressive too. Jim Marshall made a lot of money and did a lot of charity work. Alan Page was a Minnesota Supreme Court justice, was very well respected in his profession and nationally. So yeah, it was. And I think, did we interview Carl Eller one time?
Yep,
we did. We had Carl Eller at the Super Bowl, which was really, really cool.
4 Super Bowls that Vikings run. And they lost in every one of them. They were always one of those like the Bills, but they did it over a little bit longer stretch. And they were one of the favorites in the Colts beat the Jets beat the Colts in the first shocker, and then Kansas City beat Minnesota to help the AFC win the Super Bowl IV. And that was one of the huge upsets early on, only because not many people knew what was going on with the AFL and AFC.
So you're seeing a lot of outpouring of support for him around NFL circles. So rest in peace to the legendary Jim Marshall, age 87. And final thing for you, No playoff games tonight, as the NHL will also not be getting back to business until tomorrow. But tomorrow we will see Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton hosting Florida, 7 o'clock start time on the Turner networks, which are very busy right now. And since that Game 1 will already be played, Garrett Ross, any thoughts on tomorrow night's Game 1 between the Oilers and Panthers?
No, I think it's going to be explosive. I think you're going to see both teams come out and try to make fast starts. I'm really interested to see the physicality that Florida brings night in and night out through the series and how Edmonton matches up with that. It was a great finals last year, went down to 7 games with Florida ultimately winning. But I think bringing over Brad Marchand, if you're Florida, gives you that extra level of juice that you can carry. And I think Florida goes ahead and puts into them again this year.
Yep, a rematch from last year. Canada still waiting for that elusive Stanley Cup. They got another crack at it this year. We'll see if Edmonton can finally break through for the 51st state. I'm just kidding. But see if they can finally break through. But there is that underlying storyline as well. So that'll get underway tomorrow. So finals the next couple days. But, yeah, college baseball also getting a little bit of the shine, and softball obviously as well. So it's actually a pretty fun little time, even though it's not the busiest in the world. And there's a few things off the radar.
All right. Thank you, Craig. I got an update, by the way, on our interview with Jerry Glasgow at Texas Tech. This is the exact text from the media relations. Smokey, this is Jay. We just got a tornado warning issued for us, and we're hunkering down in a hotel stairwell. Of course, that is Tornado Alley, as some of you have also said. Do you have anything else you want to add off the radar with that news? Okay. All I said was
safe, I guess.
Good luck.
I don't know.
And we'll see what happens. Hopefully that literally blows through and everyone's going to be safe. All right. We come back. The 5 o'clock hour is next.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved, learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
365 Sports, we start this 5 o'clock hour. Gary Barnett at the bottom of the hour, now part of Colorado Buffaloes radio, and long time, of course, in the college football game, including Northwestern, where he did an unbelievable job, and then also in Colorado with the Buffaloes. So, Dan Patrick's show, Greg Sankey continues to make the rounds, and he was on earlier today. Paul Catalina, anything in particular, or the street tweets, we'll show all of them. Any particular tweets or any comments from him that, to me, or you caught your attention?
I think the second one I sent is the most interesting to me. Sankey again suggested the CFP selection criteria needs to change to incentivize the scheduling of highly competitive non-conference games. Asked directly about universal scheduling, Sankey said he'd be happy for a coordinated conversation to try to get scheduling right. So, yeah, that means that all the conferences would have to get together and agree to, which I think only makes sense, a format that, like, if it's 8 or it's 9, whatever it is, and then universal scheduling across conferences where they all play each other. Look, as cool as the Big Ten SEC thing would be, I would rather just see all four rotate through just for variety. And, look, the NFL is cool because, sometimes, your team gets matched up with the AFC West, and you get to see Patrick Mahomes against your team. Or, sometimes, hey, look, they're playing Buffalo this year. The Bills are coming to my town. That's a cool thing. I think it would be great for college football fans to see that kind of rotation, and it would make scheduling easier for the athletic departments, which we know is proved is not as hard as everybody makes it.
Based on COVID.
Yeah, based on COVID. So I would be all for that. That's the one he said that was the most interesting to me. Was universal scheduling. If he's, happy to get in a room and talk about it, great. I think that's something that does need to come to the forefront quite a bit, because the battle between 8 and 9 games alone, before we talk about non-conference scheduling, the 8 and 9 games thing needs to get resolved one way or the other. And I actually think that most fans would not care if it was 8 or 9 games, just that everybody's doing the same. If it was one conference game, if they were all just doing one, at least the metric would be the same.
Yeah, but happy for a coordinated conversation to try to get scheduling right. And you're the one of the conferences that wants to do just 8. Your coaches want to do just 8. They don't want to go to 9. They don't want to play in games. You can't even make up your mind on your own conference.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that they already have a scheduling arrangement with the Big Ten. So then what is the next thing? Oh, well, the ACC and the Big 12 teams are playing these, but they're not to the level of what we are, because that's this thing to every – oh, well, but it's not the same. It's why I asked last week, okay, so you already have one less game that you're playing. What else does everybody have to do to where they are suddenly on equal ground? Do you need to play 6 conference games and everybody else needs to play 10, and that would be equal? Would that be the same?
Yeah.
Like, give us a barometer of how far ahead you think that you are, that playing one less conference game doesn't even move the needle, and you still have the superior schedule. And I know some of it's based on non-comp, but he's also setting up knowing full well that would benefit them because of the Big Ten scheduling agreement, right? So I just don't trust anything he says about the greater good of college football. I just don't believe a single word that he says, and I would love to be proven wrong about that. I'd be thrilled to be proven wrong about that, because ultimately that means he's doing something that is good for college football. So please prove me wrong. But every time I see him talk, he's doing his job and doing what's best for his league.
Which is his job.
But trying to sound like he's not doing just that. And I fail to believe him almost any time he opens his mouth on anything at this point. So what would it take for you to consider the schedule's equal is what I would like to know, because you already play one less game. So the ACC as well needs to be a part of that mix. Mm-hmm. And then if you add a Big Ten, well, then that means you feel like you're probably even that much higher, Buzz. So I don't see a scenario where there is ever going to be equal scheduling.
Yeah.
Because it starts with his talking points to begin with, and he's not going to back down off those.
Yeah, he's not genuine about that at all. And I think
he already thinks they're superior, and now wants to add even more of strength to their schedule. So I don't see how you ever close that gap either.
Yeah. I do feel bad for the ACC when you're like they only have 8 games too, and most people are like, yeah, but what's the difference?
Well, that's the thing. That's why it gets annoying to hear about Sankey all the damn time, and I have to push back on that sometimes, is because, we talk about Sankey, we don't talk about Jim Phillips. We talk about the SEC, we don't talk about the ACC, and I don't think that's fair. They're doing the exact same thing.
The ACC,
they're just not as public about it.
Yeah, the ACC in this case is Tony Petitti. They don't take any of the heat.
Well, no, I'm just saying in terms of the leagues, we bag on the SEC. Oh, y'all play the cupcake in November, and y'all only play 8 conference games. Well, the ACC is doing the exact same thing, so I don't know why we're not dogging them as much.
No, look at, especially if you look at Clemson, North Carolina, Miami, all do exactly the same thing. In the week before the rivalry game at the end of the year, they play Wofford. I mean, FSU played Charleston Southern. Clemson will play Wofford or the Citadel or somebody usually from South Carolina that they can stash down there. So they're playing a guarantee game, but they don't have to pay for a flight on down there. So they're getting a bit of a bargain basement deal there. They do the exact same thing. Now, not all the ACC teams do that, but they all play 8 games.
Right.
They all play 8 games. And it just, to me, again, just figure out like what it is. But Greg Sankey, to your point, Craig, does complicate it because he already believes the metric is skewed, because he thinks his teams are so much better than everybody else year in and year out. And, let's all just have that assumption and decide what games we all play.
Why can't we just let it be?
Yeah, just let it be like, okay, yes, we understand, but we're going to do this. And then maybe but the other thing he doesn't do is, look, 9 SEC games in a 16-team conference where you don't play everybody is going to be a different thing for all 16 teams. So adding that one extra game may not be a big deal for certain teams on one year because that extra game might be one of the worst teams in the league at the time. So I think that's also something he's conveniently ignoring, because you could get the Oklahoma schedule of doom, or you could get a really pretty palatable one like Georgia had last year.
Somebody mentioned earlier in the chat room about you have all these the computer models or whatever. You would think that they could figure out a way to even things up from year to year with algorithms, but it's just never. You
can't predict who's going to be good. You
can't predict Indiana. You cannot predict Arizona State when you look at the schedules.
They do use computers. That's how they put this. I mean, not knocking the point there. You're right. You think it'd be simpler, but they do use the computers to do a lot of that and try to make it as fair as possible. It's not like the old couple who used to do did you ever see that special on The Old Couple? It used to make like the baseball schedule, and they literally did it in their house, and they had like big bulletin boards, and they do it by hand basically. For years, that's how it was done. It's MLB. It was one of the pro leagues, if I'm getting that wrong. But yeah, that's not how it's done. I mean, it's done by computer. I mean, we talked to Mac Rhodes, the Baylor AD, at length multiple times about him being in charge of putting together the Big 12 schedule. And y'all remember how much of a headache that was and how much the computers were involved there. But yeah, you can't predict that Indiana's a good or a bad game a year ahead of time when you're setting that up. So it's like everything else. There's not a perfect solution. So I think complaining about perfection is just kind of fruitless, because there is no perfection that's to be had with this whole situation. There's just too many uneven factors that are never going to be completely even. And even then when they are, then somebody will come in and say, well, no, based on my opinion and the opinion of all the people who think like me, ours is superior still. Well, based on what? It just goes back to that. So
was there as much bitching and moaning about how teams played or won national championships prior to social media? Or you mentioned that earlier, Paul, about social media. Everybody's out there. What was it? Was there just not you played the games and somebody won the national title?
No,
that's the whole point of why you play the games.
Ask any team from the Southwest Conference towards the end of their run about, if you went 7-1 in the Southwest Conference, or I guess 6-1 after Arkansas left, what were they going to say about you, right?
Well, because it's totally different. You got put into bowls that had nothing to do with the national title.
But even still, though, that those teams, you could have a really good year. I mean, A&M went 11-1 one year in the end of the Southwest Conference, or 10-1, and they didn't even get consideration for the voting in the national title because everybody said the Southwest Conference wasn't as strong as the other ones. So it's been around. I don't think, again, everything is more amplified now because of the internet. It's way more amplified.
Well, and I think people spend too much time worried about what the internet's saying, and we can do without like having to factor that into everything or talk about the internet and talk about I mean, that's clearly the difference. I don't think it's that confusing. It's very clearly the difference is there's just a lot more noise now.
So in 1992, I just typed in 1992 Southwest Conference standings. You brought something up. I'm like, what? There were only 8 teams. So that they were only 7 conference games. And I was like, golly, how long ago was that? Wasn't that long ago. Now we're sitting there looking at these conferences with 16, 17, 18 teams, and they're playing one more game but 7 conference games, which means you also then played, 4 or 5 non-conference games. And that changed, too, the number of games teams played in college football when they started adding to that number as well. So 5:18, we will have Gary Barnett at the bottom of the hour, waiting to see nothing new. I don't think we're going to get Jerry Glasgow on. The tournament, the best of 3 will start tomorrow. So obviously they'll be hunkered down in a different way, and hopefully because they're playing in game 1 of that series.
Also related, the Pacers plane had to land in Tulsa because of this storm.
On their way into OKC, yeah. So the weather kind of messing some things up along the way.
Well, I guess we won't talk to him unless he's a national champion on the other side of this, most likely.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe we talk to him regardless, but obviously if they win the national title, that'd be a big damn deal. So it would have been cool to sneak him in, but obviously there's more important matters like human lives that need to be accounted for first. So, yeah, they're in a tornado warning up in Oklahoma, and looks like they're going to be getting storms for the next few days. But it's that time of year. I mean,
wait a minute.
It's supposed to be kind of this stuff going on this time of year. So it's not the total shock, but that sucks that's going to prevent us from getting them.
We might be getting him here in just a second, Garrett. So be ready for the number. Yeah.
Great news.
Yeah. So, I think we're going to be able to get him here and got him?
Just jumped on.
All right. To let me know when we got him on. We got him. Texas Tech softball coach Jerry Glasgow with us. And first of all, I guess you're safe and sound and bunkered in, huh?
Yeah, we just been in the stairway here for the last few minutes. I was doing a Zoom call and my phone kept ringing. I just hung it up. I didn't look at it. I just turned it off and then my wife come and knocked on the door and opened the door and hollered. So I said, I'm doing a call. Go. and then the alarm started going on. Oh, that's what they were trying to tell me.
Yeah.
So interesting. But yeah, here I am. We're good to go.
Well, stay safe, and obviously we just had a note that Indiana basketball, the Pacers had to land in Tulsa on their way for the NBA Finals to start against the OKC Thunder. What has been, you guys have been on this incredible run, but anything different the way the last 24 hours has been after clinching the opportunity to play in the championship series?
It's been exciting. The kids are at an all-time high confidence, and they're really excited about this upcoming series. And I think we're in a place we've never been as a team. I think their confidence has just exploded over the last 3 weeks. And, they're experiencing success in the postseason. I think we're 11-0 now since postseason started. And it's just a great place and really exciting.
The big story of your team was obviously the transfer of Najee Canada to you and all that comes with it. Outside of the the hoopla around what that took and all of that, what is it like knowing that you don't really have to go out to the circle that much, not only for you as a coach, but for the team behind her that just knows like, hey, we're getting these 3 outs.
Yeah, it's amazing. We got a really good ball club, and everybody does and should talk about Najee because she deserves all the credit she gets. But we had 10 kids that I think made the all Big 12 conference team. Basically, every position on the field on defense was awarded some type of an award, and it's a really neat club too. It's made up of a couple of really good freshmen at third and short, a veteran second baseman and Alexa Langoliers, veteran senior out in right field with Alon Johnson, and then a bunch of really good juniors and sophomores and all the rest of the positions. And there's quite a bit of experience on the ball club when you look at it. Alon Johnson had World Series experience along with Najee. All the Louisiana kids all had super regional experience and regional experience every year, and had won Alexa Langler's won a conference championship all 4 years and conference tournament championship 3 out of her 4 years. So we have quite a bit of leadership, and we had kids that knew how to win that joined the roster, and so we've been able to get better and learn how to compete. And so it wasn't like we completely had to start over, and things fell together really well.
What's it like in Lubbock, Texas right now? We had Coach Kitley on a couple weeks ago. Obviously, big success there in the track and field program. Basketball and Grant McCaslin was rolling. Joey in football's got a lot of excitement building. I mean, can you just describe sort of the atmosphere and the cohesiveness of Red Raider athletics right now?
Phenomenal. The Matador Club has created a lot of excitement with the players that they've signed for football, and I expect them to do something very similar to what we did with the softball program. I think they're going to be super competitive, and of course, basketball was Final 18 this year, and just Grant's got it going. I mean, it's really exciting what he's doing. So it's just a very exciting time to be part of Red Raider Nation. Coach Kitley, he's a legend. I mean, he's so impressive when you in your all-staff meetings or your head coach meetings. That guy, and he is sharp. And so it's really fun. It's a great group of people. Our women's tennis team was outstanding. All the coaches, they band together and really help each other in any way possible.
Jerry, you were at Louisiana, and I sent Glenn Moore, Baylor softball coach, longtime coach at Baylor. I asked him about you, and you were at Louisiana, which has had great success. And I remember him telling me he used to love to play that program because, especially on the road, because the fan base was so good and electric, and you were a part of that. What is bringing that success over to Lubbock? How, and you had players, of course, too, but how much of it, or is that an easy transition?
Yeah, it took a little while, and winning is the answer. If you want a fan base, you have to win. Mm-hmm. And there's no doubt. You can tell by here at the World Series, it's amazing how many Texas Tech fans have been in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. It's literally thousands. I mean, you can't go anywhere in town right now that there's not Texas Tech fans walking around saying "guns up" and wreck them, and they recognize you. And then at the game, I mean, Oklahoma always has 8,000-9,000 fans, and I'm telling you, our fan base was really loud last night. We were actually, when we had the lead 2-0 early innings, our fan base might have even been louder in Oklahoma. So I think that the fan base in our softball program, when we start season next year in February, I think it's going to be absolutely electric and just unprecedented what we're going to see happen in Lubbock, Texas with softball next year.
By the way, Alexa Langeliers, we knew her brother, Shay, when he played here at Baylor. Now, of course, knocking it out of the park for the A's. That is a baseball, softball family extraordinaire there, Coach. But I got to ask you about stealing home against UCLA. It is, I think, like they say the triple is the most exciting play, but I would say that stealing home has got to be right there with it. Can you take us through the decision to do that, and what does it feel like when you're watching it happen? Because it is maybe the riskiest thing I think you could do in either baseball or softball.
Yeah, well, we had a runner on first, and we hit a double in the corner, and I think we should have scored on that, but we didn't get it went right over our head as a low line drive, and we just didn't get a good jump, and so we ended up holding her at third, and then we didn't get her out with one out. We didn't get her in, and I just thought, we got to score right here. We have to score. Otherwise, if that inning ended with our runner stuck on the base in a 0-0 game, I just felt like we were going to lose all momentum. And so I made the decision, like, we're going to go for this. And when I realized they wasn't going to throw to second base, the catcher was just going to throw it back to the pitcher. I just had the thought, like, let's run the play like we used to run in junior high. We never practiced it ever. I just told the runner exactly what I wanted to do after the first pitch. We ended up going on the third pitch on an 0-2 count. And I just was counting it on an 0-2. They'd waste one pitch. And they did. Luckily, it wasn't. It was a rise ball, so the catcher stayed back, and the block and the batter totally blocked her view of the runner coming down the line. And we just caught her. She followed the runner from first to second with her eyes and never, ever checked the runner coming in from third until she threw the ball to the pitcher, and she threw it late. So it just worked out. It worked out perfect. It looked like great execution. It looked like we'd practiced it for months, and it really was just a lot of luck, I think, that fell our way in that particular incident. But it made for a really exciting moment, and then it's been like, I forgot how many million views they told me had been showed on all the different formats of social media, but millions and millions and millions of views.
Well, the fact that the catcher was left-handed, did that come into play?
No, it didn't matter. I mean, if anything, that probably hurt us, because she should have been looking towards third base. But I think what did come into play, my catcher was batting, and Vic's about 5'2", and she's thick. They got real thick legs. She's one of them real strong little catchers, and I think that her low to the ground blocked her eyes, and she just didn't see. She just didn't see the runner coming down the line at all. And I think it helped too. It was really loud in the stadium, and they couldn't. The catcher didn't hear the third base dugout was their dugout. UCLA's dugout was on the third base side, and they were all yelling, but the catcher just didn't hear it.
You've had experience as an assistant coach at the series, a World Series. I think Georgia, maybe A&M too. How much has that come into play?
Yeah, this is my fourth trip here. I think it helped a lot. Like, I know how to prepare the girls. I kept telling them all year, like, you can't communicate normally at the World Series. It's so loud, and it's just I have to be able to communicate with you in between innings. And I'm not going to tip your toe around. I'm going to tell you what I got to tell you, and I'm going to say it loud and firm. And you got to be able to take that and move forward. That's how I coach every day in the regular season. And I tell them that's why. So when we get to the World Series, we can communicate. We're used to this every day. And I asked them this morning, I said, now do you understand why I was saying that all fall and early in the season? They said, yeah, absolutely. Because it's just the crowd noise, the atmosphere here, and you actually have 2.5 minutes between innings instead of 90 seconds or 2 minutes. You've got more time than ever, but it just seemed like that 2.5 minutes goes by in 15 seconds. And so there is a lot of added pressure and a lot of added, I think, tension maybe might be the right word, to the atmosphere here. And you have to be prepared to handle it.
They obviously reacted positively in the long run. You guys win the game last night, but what was kind of the immediate talk and just the reaction in the dugout and amongst the team when Oklahoma ties things up last night?
We just took it in stride. Like, okay, they threw. I took the kids right out before the bottom seventh, and we were the home team, and I took the whole offense. And I said, hey, we didn't want it to be easy. We didn't expect it to be easy. We're playing Oklahoma, and we're 2-2 with a chance to win in the bottom of the seventh. Let's don't go to extra innings. Let's win it right now. This is our moment. Let's win it. And we had 9-1-2 up. And it just couldn't have worked out better. They just, 9 got out, 1 got a hit, 2 hit it off the top of the wall, barely missed a home run. And then we had second and third. And then all we had to do was we hit a fly ball to right field with the fastest runner on our team on third base, and Maya Davis, our leadoff hitter, and we scored. So, they really did it in kind of clockwork, very professional half inning to take the 3-2 win. So, and I think that was really good for our team. I told them afterwards, that was a really great moment for our ball club to lose the lead in the top of the seventh to Oklahoma, get punched in the gut, and then respond the way we did. Was just a really good, after you survive it, just a really good practice run. And that very well could happen again here in the next 3 games.
Yeah, you mentioned that, like, you get to you slayed the softball dragon of Oklahoma, and that is one of the hardest things that anybody can do, is beat a dynastic team like that. What is the coaching tightrope you've got to walk from? Hey, that was amazing, but now we got at least 2 more games that we have to play here against Texas, who has also been waiting for this exact thing to happen.
Yeah, it's just, you got a moment to enjoy the game with Oklahoma, but then you got to focus on Texas, who's equally as talented, I think, and a very good ball club, outstanding ball club. Been to the finals 3 out of the last 4 years, I believe now. So we have to refocus and get ready for a war. It'll be a war the next couple of days.
You played them earlier in the year, and obviously you had the 2-1 9-inning game, and I know we got to let you go here in a second. and then you were part of that tournament. Your thoughts about playing Texas and any of the old rivalry of the days when they were in the same conference? I know you weren't there, but it was a part of that.
Yeah, I think what happened before doesn't matter because we're a totally different team. We're a different coach team.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I read somewhere this morning Oklahoma had beat Texas Tech 37 games in a row. And like the last 12 games, the combined score was like 100 to 6, you know, and that's irrelevant at this point. Last year, Texas, Oklahoma State outscored Texas Tech 130 to 22. Well, they're not going to score, you know, in 10 games. And on this year's team, if we played those teams 10 times, they wouldn't score 30 runs. So it's a different ball club, a whole different. I don't think anything happened in the past matters. I don't really even think the February games have much to do with it because I think we're a totally different team now than we were in February, and I think Texas is a different team as well.
Jerry, thanks for your time. Congratulations. That was something else. Did it make it even more special because you had to win the game in the bottom of the 7th and you'd won the game 2-0 just straight up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it added an element of suspense and added some theater, some drama to the win. You know, it's just anytime you win a game like that to advance to the national finals, but then to win it in the very bottom of the 7th, after they threw a really good punch, that was what was good for my kids to take a really big blow because that would have devastated a lot of ball clubs. You know, we preach mental toughness. We're mentally tough. We know how to fight. We know how to respond. We teach that every day. And they took that punch in stride. It didn't even faze us. And I think it was a big, big moment for our ball club to realize just how special they've become.
After the celebration, anything from Patty Gasso to say to you, congratulations, moving on because of what you were able to accomplish right there in their backyard?
You know, when I went through the line, I talked to Sam Landry, who played for me 3 years
Absolutely, yeah.
At Louisiana, and I was really shook up. I mean, after I talked to Sam, I was really shook up. And so I said good game to everybody, and I remember saying good game to Coach Gasso, but looking back on it, I wish I just stopped and talked to her more. I was just trying to get off the field without breaking down, to be honest.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Good luck this week against Texas starting tomorrow, best of 3. Thank you for your time. Stay safe and get some rest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jerry Glasgow, head coach, softball coach at Texas Tech, as they play Texas starting tomorrow. Best of 3 in Oklahoma City. This is 365 Sports. Gary Barnett is next. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and full-service bakery. Right now, they've got shrimp on sale, also bone-in pork and the boneless pork butt, and both select or all 3 select choice and prime New York strip steak. If you want, they have a live lobster tank and they have cold beer and wine. If you want something for brisket, whatever, they have not only the brisket or the tri-tip, but all of the marinades and the seasonings and everything else you could imagine. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace on Lake Air Drive in Waco.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months, and it's a happy experience. It's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8-year-old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. Keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
This is 365 Sports.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson, investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Football coach at Northwestern, Colorado, now part of the Colorado Football Buffaloes flagship radio broadcast. Gary Barnett joins us. He's been on with us a handful of times. He joins us today on 365 Sports. Gary, as you overview college football and how they're expanding the playoff yet again starting next year, how do you view what they're doing or how they're doing it?
Well, first of all, I like what they're doing with the playoff. I was skeptical at first even with a 12-team playoff, but I'll tell you, I think it created great interest among people who normally wouldn't be that interested in a playoff because there was only a couple teams in it. So I think they're playing to the public. I think they're playing to what people want. And so I sort of like the whole 16-team idea. What I don't like is that we're piddling around, paying kids and going through this NIL mess and going through the whole house settlement. And you know what? None of this, it's not going to get cleared up until we make them employees. That's the only way out of the things that most of us don't like about college football right now. But the one thing that we do like is that 16-team playoff. I can tell you that.
Coach, from the coach's perspective, it was funny to hear that, some of the leaders of the SEC thought that everybody would want the 4 automatic qualifiers. But when coaches do the math, because coaches are far more practical, it's like, well, if I'm one of the 16 best teams, I'm going to get in. So that could be more than 4. I'd rather have that. Do you feel that sometimes these decisions are made too much without the input from coaches?
Well, I think we've always felt that way. It's a tough job for them. I get it, but all along we've had a little say in most of the things that are out there. And I talked to a guy that worked for the NCAA for years, and he says, every rule we have was brought to us by athletic directors or coaches, but mostly by athletic directors. And so, but coaches, I don't know whether because we're not there long enough or we're nobody trusts us or what. We just haven't had the say that we hoped that we might have at times. I'll give you a perfect example. Since 1994, we've been trying to get 5 years of eligibility passed. So it's 5 for 5 rather than dinking around with all this red shirt stuff. And how many years? How many years is that? 30 some odd years that we've been trying to get that through. And it just makes too much sense. So we'll see. They're visiting it again. We'll see what happens. But it's always been looked at by the academic side as not the right thing to do. But today's world, it's totally the right thing to do. I just hope that they can get a champion for it and get it going.
It's been a little while since we talked to you last. I think it was probably in season at some point. What did you think of the Buffaloes' return to the Big 12 and all that came with that, good and bad?
Well, I think the Big 12 was a great thing. And I think that was perfect for us. You know, it's the most balanced conference that's out there right now. No question about it. I mean, there's literally probably 10 teams that could win it. And it's, it creates a lot of interest. So I think it's been good for Colorado. For us getting in there and having the kind of season we had, was a big plus for us. We needed to have it happen here in Boulder. Everybody disappointed in the way we played in the bowl game and the way we played, Kansas, and we had a chance to maybe be better than we ended up. But overall, I think most of the people around here are really excited about the Big 12 and the fact that there's, you're going to have a chance, and there's so many good teams in it that it makes for great competition.
Gary, when you were in the Big 12, there were some alphas. There was the start of what Stoops was about to do at Oklahoma, what Mac Brown was building at Texas. Nebraska was still a part of being a relevant part of the national scene among Kansas State and others. And then what you did in 01 and 02. And how difficult was the conference at that time?
Well, you're right. There were some alphas. Oklahoma became an alpha when we first got in. They weren't, but they became an alpha. We played them my first year in '99. We beat them in Boulder, and then they turned around the next year and won a national championship. So they became an alpha. Texas and A&M were alphas. There's no question. And at the time, you'd have to say Nebraska, although that changed in 2001 or after 2001 season. It was a tough conference. Mike Leach was at Tech. That made it hard. Baylor was a tough out. I felt Missouri was a tough out. It became a tough out. I mean, they moved from the Big 12 and 2 years in a row played for the SEC championship. So it was probably a better conference than what we all got credit for. And I hated to see, the teams that split off. And Colorado was one of them. I wasn't coaching when they split off, but I hated to see them split off because I thought there was really, really a big time conference there. And everybody was mad at Texas, and it's so childish when we look back on it now. But it was a hard conference, no question.
Gary Barnett with us. Colorado coming off. You mentioned the disappointment, getting blown out by BYU. A lot of new faces. A player you said you'd never seen anything like him with Travis Hunter, Shador, among others. A lot of players drafted. Your thoughts about how they not rebuild by any means, but how Deion moves forward for this year?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if anybody knows. Vegas has us at 6.5. After watching all the spring practices, I think that's about right. Based not so much on us, but based on how good everybody else is going to be, I think. I mean, our schedule, we're going to play BYU, Iowa State at home. We've got both the Arizonas. We got Utah. We got Houston. We've got West Virginia this year. And so I just think that you can't duck anybody in this conference. So, we're going to have to play really well. We're going to be a different team than we were last year with Shador. The quarterbacks are going to be more, dual threat guys defensively. I don't know that we can sustain what we were able to put together last year. And half of these guys, as you know, I don't even know them. I never saw them play, and we haven't seen them on film yet. So we just have to wait and see what things look like in August.
Coach, obviously, like one of the stories, for Shador was this is the first coach when he goes to the Browns that he'll have that's not his dad. For Deion, the other side of that coin is for Deion Sanders, this is the first quarterback he'll have that he didn't make. And what do you think that you'll see differently from Deion as a coach in that there is maybe a lack of comfort with Caden Salter or Juju Lewis that wouldn't be there if they were your kid that you knew from the very first day they were born.
Yeah, Shedeur was really a good player, and he made Deion look pretty good, and so I think they're going to miss him. I know I missed watching him in the spring. I missed watching all the big plays and the fact that he would stay alive and get the ball thrown down the field. This group right now, if it's not open immediately, they're off and running. And I think it's a little harder to call plays. I think it's going to be a little harder on Pat Sherman. But it's going to be interesting to see how Deion adjusts, because Shedeur bailed that team out a lot. Now, you can say he held the ball too long, but, he doesn't make most of those plays if he doesn't hold that ball. So it'll be interesting. I'm eager to see it myself.
It's another dip into the past rather than a question about the current, but your thoughts on Eric Bieniemy getting put on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot?
Well, I think he really deserves it. He was a great player, and he's been a great coach as well, although that doesn't merit the Hall of Fame balloting. But he was without question the guy that the spiritual leader of this football team in Colorado for 3 years, and maybe for 4 as a freshman, he was that way. So, I'm a great fan of Eric Bieniemy, and I'm really proud that he's been put on that ballot along with Chris Hudson.
Yeah. We had, I know Cordell Stewart was before you were at Colorado, but we had him on at the Big 12 not media days. They had that big combine up in Frisco. What a personality. You look at great names in Colorado history. What are your thoughts about with Bill McCartney and what he built, which was there was in between when you were there, and him having the statue put up outside of Folsom Field?
Yeah, well, I actually had Cordell. I recruited Cordell and had him as a freshman, and so we've remained really good friends for years. But what Bill did was sensational. I mean, came out of nowhere. He willed it to happen. He created a recruiting standard that's never been met around here. That's been touched. A lot of us have tried, but his standard and the players that he was able to recruit. And I was with him at the time, but he, like I said, he set the standard, and we're all trying to live up to that in some degree. And I think sometimes those statues are a little bit out of place, but I don't think this one's going to be. I think this is perfect.
We had him on at Big 12 Pro Days, and it was one of the most fun interviews I think we've ever done before. He and Mason Crosby together was just an absolute blast. Coach, Jordan Seaton made a comment that I thought was really interesting from a player of this era about the center transferred out, and he said, "Man, this really hurts. You can't really build a brotherhood anymore." Particularly along the offensive line, that's a key thing, and that's something that really needs to get better. When you heard that, were you kind of surprised that a player from this era would kind of comment on, man, it's a real bummer that the transfer portal does what it does?
Well, yeah. I mean, especially a guy that's only been here 1 year. And so, but I think of any position, that position demands and creates and enhances that kind of attitude that you've got to have a little brotherhood in there. Those guys are on an island more so than anybody else. And they get more criticism and less credit than anybody on the football team. So they have to have each other to cling on to. So, yeah, I thought that was an interesting comment. I thought it was very intuitive comment, from a guy that isn't old enough to really know all that, but he seemed to know it. And in some ways, that's really good to have somebody that far along at this early part of his career mentally to know exactly what they need to do and hopefully realize what he has to do to play his part in that.
How difficult is it to coach in this day and age, Coach, with the transfer portal, the NIL, there's all sorts of things up in the air. How difficult do you think it is or would be?
Well, of course, I'm not doing it. I'm seeing it from afar. And so it's speculation on my part. But I think the coaches, most of the coaches that are in it now have grown up in this, and they've got a feel for it, and they know what it takes. The only thing I don't like about it is that the coaches in many ways are they're moving around as much as the players. And so, and you can't blame them. You really can't, because they're just seeking opportunities. But I would have never gone to the Rose Bowl if I didn't have all 9 of my coaches for 5 years. And so, that's the sort of thing you're missing out on, because, they're just becoming gypsies themselves.
Gary, thank you very much. I hope to have you on with us sometime, maybe right before football and a couple of times during the season. We look forward to it. Thank you. Have a great summer.
Thanks, guys. Great being with you.
Gary Barnett coached at Northwestern and did one of the great rebuilding jobs of all time, even in that same category with Bill Snyder at K-State, and just had the great run at Northwestern, as you mentioned, the Rose Bowl, and then what he did, winning the Big 12 championship in 2001. And changing, really, college football, because he beat the big 800-pound gorilla, beat the hell out of him, 62-36, and they have never, Nebraska, been the same. When we come back, Paul Catalina, his top 5, and Andrew Valet with the poll results. This is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome to Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Use our promo code 365sports for a discount at checkout. They've got the Summer 25 sale going on right now. Today, we're going to talk about teams that should advance to Omaha based on the good matchups that they have in the Super Regionals. Number 5, FSU. Yeah, this is a homer pick, but this is an Omaha team. Great pitching, really solid offense. They are hot on offense right now. Yes, they are going on the road to Corvallis. It's a really good team in Oregon State. But FSU out of the ACC. The ACC, by the way, the best baseball conference in the country this year. How do I know that? 5 teams in the Super Regionals compared to 4 from the SEC. 5-4. Just saying. Scoreboard. FSU has really deep pitching at the top, including top 10 pick Jamie Arnold. He will be a top 10 pick in this year's draft. They also have a first baseman who's a true freshman named Miles Bailey, who can rake, not to mention the ACC Player of the Year, Alex Lodice at shortstop. That is a loaded team. Number 4, Arkansas. This team will get you. Their pitching depth goes top to bottom. Plus, really good on the base pass, really good defensively. There's a reason they're the number 3 overall national seed out of the second best baseball conference in America. Garrett has yet to chime in. Second best baseball conference in America, the SEC. They had a great year and maybe flew under the radar a little bit, considering that the defending champ Tennessee, who they also dodged playing, but they have a great opportunity to move on to the next round. Number 3, Coastal Carolina. They play Auburn, a team that's seated higher than them. But the way Coastal has played all year long and the way that they came through their regional last week leads me to believe that this is a team that is bound for Omaha. They are clean all the way up and down. They've got an attitude about what happened, even though Florida's out of it. They've got something to prove. They are a small conference team. They have won this thing before. They have got skins on the wall. This is a confident team right now going in. I think Coastal Carolina comes out with the upset this week and moves on to Omaha. Number 2, LSU. Yes, Garrett had to white knuckle, as did all of Tiger Nation last night against Arkansas Little Rock as they fell down 5-1, but they eventually came back and won. This is a team that's been really, really good all year, ranked 1, 2, 3, wherever they are. Wound up being the 6th overall seed because between the ACC and SEC, they're beating up on each other down the stretch, so the seeding got a little bit, muddled. But I actually think that this is a team that was far more deserving of the top overall seed than Vandy was. They played more consistent all year long, just struggled a little bit down the stretch, lost some games to some other good teams, but now I think they're right. They're going to be at the box. Everything's going to be fine again, just like they were. But West Virginia's scary, but I do think that LSU moves on. And number 1, North Carolina. This is my favorite to win it right now. Pitching depth, offensive explosion, top to bottom. In fact, if I had to pick the final right now, it would either be North Carolina and Arkansas or North Carolina and LSU. I think those are the teams that really, really can go. Sadly, FSU, I can't pick them until they actually do it and release us all from this curse of pain. But North Carolina, really good team. When they lose, they come back with a vengeance. You saw it against Oklahoma. They don't get down in games emotionally when they trail, and they can just come at you in ways with their depth. I think North Carolina, who has had tons of success in college baseball over the last decade, is my favorite, not only to advance to Omaha, but right now to win the entire thing. That's going to do it for this. Next up, Andrew Valade's polls. Smokey will read them to you for the last time this week before he abandons us for Florida for a few days. Smokey, short timer. Get to yapping.
I will. I will be going down to see my brothers on Thursday and through the weekend, back on the show again on Tuesday. Andrew Valade, here are the polls and the results. 1, which team is the most overrated among ESPN's 2025 FPI rankings? This is from Bill Connolly. Alabama, 42%. Texas at 28%. That eats up most of the pie. Ohio State, 16%. And the Ducks of Oregon at 14%. And a big number, just over 300 votes in that particular poll.
Whoa, there we go. Andrew coming with the heat today. By the way, all 4 teams new quarterbacks this year they'll be breaking in.
And all 4 could easily be
great.
Playing in the semifinals.
Yeah,
They're that good. Which team is the biggest underdog? According to ESPN's, based on their ratings and who you think aren't getting enough love. And there are the Red Raiders. Get your guns up at 57%. Nebraska, South Carolina, Arizona State, all of them, Craig, in that double-digit area. Anything on that? Texas Tech overwhelmingly with another large 273 votes.
Yeah, I'm not surprised on this show that they would probably get a bulk of the votes given the audience. But I think that they are a team that's not really an underdog at this point. I think that they're kind of out there. So, but yeah, if you consider them an underdog or they're underrepresented, then I think that there's a great case to be made. And I expect big things from them this year. So I guess a lot of other people do too, and they should.
Where were they ranked, Andrew, or anyone know, Garrett?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
They were
I don't know. That's I don't know if there's was it down below 20 or so, and that's what got people voting and put it in there. Andrew, great job. Nearly 600 combined votes on the two polls today, and appreciate everybody for being a part of that. All right, for Garrett Ross, for Emery Winter, who's working on 365 Sports tonight, 10:30 on the CW. Andrew Valet blowing out all that content into everywhere you could imagine. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, thank you for your time. We appreciate our great sponsors. Good night on 365 Sports.